Chapter 1691. That one sentence had decided everyone's fate. They could only blame themselves for befriending Chen Fugue. For a moment, the sounds of slaughter were heard. Standing among the corpses, Yun Jian's expression was calm, making it impossible to tell if she was happy or sad. Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen felt like they were looking at the god of slaughter. Yun Jian, who stood among the corpses and pools of blood, was a perfect match for the scene. It was as if she was meant to live in such an environment. At that moment, Yun Jian felt like she had returned to her past life, the world where blood was spilled. It was an era filled with bloodshed. The next day, something major happened in Longmen City. The richest millionaire in the southern region was having a party, but unfortunately, a fire broke out. The doors were shut tight and everyone was burned to death by the raging fire. There were no exceptions to the disaster. Many of the millionaires who were invited to the party died on the spot as well. When the fire was discovered and extinguished, everyone was burned to death. Some were not even left with their bones. When the news was released, not only Longmen City, but the entire Zhe province and even the entire country Z was shocked. It sounded like a massacre, but there was no evidence at the scene. In the end, the police concluded that it was an accident and closed the case without further investigation. Chen Sini was unconscious for 3 days. When she woke up, she could not move her head as it was supported by a skeleton. Pain. It was excruciating pain. Chen Sini was in agony the entire night after she woke up. There were a few times when she wanted to commit suicide, but after hearing from Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen that it was Yun Jian who saved her life, she fainted a few times from the pain but managed to hang on. Every time she could not take it anymore, Zhang Xiaofeng would go to Chen Sini and tell her that Chen Yaqing was dead and that God had punished her by making her die. They did not mention a word about what happened that day. And the culprit of this incident, Zhang Qingjun, was paralyzed because he was not sent to the hospital in time. He could only sit in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. Zhang Xiaofeng accompanied Chen Sini day and night. He was afraid that Chen Sini would commit suicide because of the pain, so he often told Chen Sini some interesting things. When Chen Sini was in too much pain to bear, he would let Chen Sini bite his hand. As soon as Yun Jian came out of Chen Sini's ward in the hospital, she heard the shouts from a distance. "Doctor! Doctor! My son can't be paralyzed. He could not spend the rest of his life in a wheelchair. Please think of something. As long as we can save him, we can spend as much money as you want." When Yun Jian went downstairs and arrived at the main entrance of the People's Hospital, she saw a middle-aged couple pestering a hospital staff, begging. Sitting in the wheelchair next to him was Zhang Qingjun. Next to Zhang Qingjun stood the timid headmaster Shi of No. 1 Middle School. When Yun Jian walked over, she happened to hear the doctor say to the middle-aged couple, "We really have no other way, but there is someone who can cure his leg." "Who?" The couple's eyes lit up with excitement. The woman known as the Hand of Death in the medical field. The patient in Ward 506 was originally declared dead, but she was the one who saved him, the doctor said. As soon as he finished speaking, the timid headmaster Shi suddenly pointed at Yun Jian, who was about to leave, and shouted, "It's her." She stabbed Zhang Qingjun's leg. Hearing that the person who harmed their son was passing by, the couple turned around and pounced on Yun Jian crazily. "It's you? It's you. You harmed our Junjun. You're so vicious at such a young age. Why don't you die?" As soon as the couple pounced on Yun Jian dodged sideways. Her face was exposed to the doctor's eyes. "It's all her fault. It's all her fault. This has nothing to do with me." Headmaster Shi wanted to get rid of the responsibility. He pointed at Yun Jian and said to the couple. However, just as Headmaster Shi and the couple were glaring at Yun Jian with hatred, wanting nothing more than to tear Yun Jian into pieces, they saw the doctor quickly walk up to Yun Jian. He bowed to Yun Jian and said respectfully, "You. Why are you here?" After asking, the doctor turned to look at Headmaster Shi and the couple. He pointed at Yun Jian and introduced her. Chapter 1692. The Hand of Death? Her. She is the hand of death in your medical field? Are you kidding me? When the doctor pointed at Yun Jian and told Zhang Qingjuan's mother what he said just now, the parents were dumbfounded. Both of them turned to look at Yun Jian in disbelief and exclaimed in shock. Especially Zhang Qingjuan's mother, Mrs. Wen. Her son had always been her pride. She had a son, so she had a special status in her husband's family. The most important thing was that her son was not only handsome, but also the most handsome boy in the school. He really got his strong genes. Mrs. Wen had always been proud of that. But she never thought that her son would be stabbed by a crazy woman in the school. His legs were paralyzed and he could no longer walk. Mrs. Wen always thought that the girls in the school were not good enough for her son. In fact, Mrs. Wen didn't know the reason why Zhang Qingjun had an accident. She put all the blame on Yun Jian. So when Mrs. Wen just knew that the person who hurt her son was Yun Jian, she rushed up to vent her anger without saying anything. But Mrs. Wen never thought that the girl who hurt her son was the top doctor in the medical field, the hand of death, who could even save a patient who had been declared dead. The girl who caused his son to become like this was actually the only person in the world who could save his son. The enemy became the person who needed to be flattered. This, Mrs. Wen was stunned. She never thought that things would turn out like this. Zhang Qingjun, who was sitting in the wheelchair, was also completely stunned. Headmaster Shi of No. 1 Middle School was also petrified. As a doctor, I also have the professional ethics of a doctor. I never joke about this kind of thing. At that time, the heart and brain of the patient in Ward 506 had stopped working in the emergency room. Originally, he was completely dead. But as soon as she took action, the person strangely came back to life. I've seen it with my own eyes. Other than the hand of death, in our medical field, no one else can do it. The doctor was very unhappy after hearing Mrs. Wen's words. In addition, he wanted to show off in front of Yun Jian, so he said to Mrs. Wen in a very impatient tone. Since the doctor dared to say so, how could it be fake? No matter how much they didn't believe it, they had no choice but to believe it. You really are the hand of death. It's impressive that you're so capable at such a young age, but don't blame me for not reminding you. You've provoked someone you shouldn't have. Zhang Qingjuan's father was much calmer than Yun Jian. At this moment, Zhang Qingjuan's father, Zhang Di, was looking at Yun Jian with a serious expression. After that, Zhang Di's expression calmed down a little. He stared at Yun Jian and directly stated his purpose. My son is sitting in a wheelchair because of you. As long as you find a way to cure him, I won't pursue your responsibility. Otherwise, based on this alone, I want you to spend the rest of your life in prison. Zhang Di didn't think that there was anyone behind Yun Jian. With Zhang Di's influence, destroying a girl was a piece of cake. The most important thing now was to cure his son's leg. As for whether he would really let Yun Jian go, it was hard to say. I won't cure him. Under Zhang Di's threat, Yun Jian said almost without hesitation. As for what you said, whether I'll spend the rest of my life in prison. Yun Jian had already walked up to Zhang Di and the other two. She glanced sideways at Zhang Di and the other two. Her red lips curved slightly, and she said to them in a voice that only Zhang Di and the other two could hear, Do you know about the strange fire that happened in the villa on Jifang Road 2 days ago? If you want to disappear from this world forever like them, then you're welcome to do it to me. After a pause, Yun Jian's expression suddenly turned cold. The moment Zhang Di and the other two's faces suddenly became frightened, she said sinisterly. Chapter 1693. Yun Jian's words were cold, making Zhang Di and the other two feel as if they were in a world of ice and snow, frozen by thick ice. Zhang Qingjun, Zhang Di, and Mrs. Wen all shivered unconsciously. When they carefully recalled what Yun Jian said just now, Zhang Qingjun's eyes widened abruptly as his pupils constricted. Glaring at Yun Jian, he nearly shouted with his mouth agape. In the end, afraid of Yun Jian, he lowered his voice and said fearfully, There was a fire in Chen Yaqing's house, and all the guests, including the host, died in the fire. Was it you? Could it be that you did it? But Zhang Qingjun didn't dare to shout out the last sentence. It was because he saw Yunjian's right hand poking out of her pants pocket. Between the fingers of her right hand was a butterfly knife that had yet to be unsheathed. The gleam of the butterfly knife flashed briefly. Seeing this, Zhang Qingjun swallowed a mouthful of saliva. The fire in the villa on Jifang Road shocked the whole Zhe province and even the whole Z country. Chen Fugui was the richest man in the southern region and had a certain influence in the whole Z country. That fire took the lives of Chen Fugui's family without warning, including all the rich people who went to Chen Fugui's house to attend the party. It was sudden, but now that Yun Jian had mentioned it, she was shocked. In addition, Chen Yaqing was the culprit who almost killed Chen Sini. On the day of the fire, Yun Jian went to school to find him. Putting the two together, Yun Jian, Zhang Qingjun, who suddenly realized this, looked at Yun Jian in horror. Chen Fugui was the richest man in the southern region. Yun Jian was too scary. She could even kill the richest man in the southern region without leaving a trace. Just what kind of power was behind her? Zhang Qingjuan's eyes widened in horror. Mrs. Wen and Zhang Di immediately felt that something was wrong. Mrs. Wen and Zhang Di didn't know how their son Zhang Qingjun provoked Yun Jian, but they were not stupid. Naturally, they understood the meaning of Yun Jian's words. Moreover, Zhang Qingjun was only halfway through his sentence. The richest man in the southern region, Chen Fugui's family, was quietly exterminated. Was this done by Yun Jian? Zhang Di and Mrs. Wen's faces darkened at the same time. Who was Chen Fugui? Even on the international stage, Chen Fugui was still a big shot. Although Zhang Di's family background was illustrious, compared to Chen Fugui's family background, it was not even worth a blade of grass. Yun Jian could annihilate Chen Fugui's family without a sound. How could the Zhang clan afford to offend him? At this moment, Zhang Di and Madame Wen couldn't help but tremble in their hearts. How did their family's Jun provoke such a terrifying woman? No, it was a girl. She wasn't even human. Even if the girl named Shen Sini accidentally pushed her down the stairs, her head hit the ground and she died. She didn't need to silence Chen Yaqing's family. But she really killed Chen Yaqing's family. He had really managed to wipe out an entire sect without a sound. Junjun, we don't want to treat you anymore. Mom will take care of you forever. Mom will protect you. Let's go. Let's go. Mrs. Wen's face turned green with fear. How could she dare to stay here? If she stayed any longer, she would lose her life. Mrs. Wen hurried over to push Zhang Qingjuan's wheelchair. She reached out and pulled her husband Zhang Di's clothes. They hurried out of the hospital gate. Before they walked out of the hospital gate, they heard a sharp female voice behind them. The three of them were scared and their faces changed again. Did I say you could go? As soon as she finished speaking, Yun Jian had already flashed to the three of them. You. What do you want? Mrs. Wen's face was pale with fear. She stuttered and asked Yun Jian. Chapter 1694. Kowtow and apologize before leaving? Why? Zhang Qingjun naturally knew what Yun Jian meant, but Zhang Qingjuan's parents had no idea. Mrs. Wen didn't even know why Yun Jian did this to her precious son. In Mrs. Wen's and Zhang Di's eyes, their precious son did nothing wrong. It was Yun Jian's epilepsy that provoked Zhang Qingjun from the beginning. Maybe it was because their son was handsome and Yun Jian failed to pursue their son before. Then she went crazy and wanted to take revenge on him. Mrs. Wen and Zhang Di didn't know the situation, so Zhang Qingjun naturally didn't tell his parents how he used Chen Sini as a scapegoat to stop Chen Yaqing, the ugly girl who pursued him. However, he didn't expect that Chen Yaqing pushed Chen Sini directly down from the second floor during the quarrel. My son is already like this. What does he have to do with your friend? My son is an upright person. Why should he kowtow and apologize to your friend? Mrs. Wen was afraid of Yun Jian, but now they were at the gate of the hospital and there were many people around. Maybe it was a big hospital, so Mrs. Wen was very bold to reply to Yun Jian. You can ask your son whether he has anything to do with me or not. Today, I must apologize. Of course, you can choose not to apologize. If you are burned alive in your sleep one day, it has nothing to do with me. Hearing this, Yun Jian knew that Mrs. Wen and Zhang Di must think that their son was innocent. Zhang Qingjun definitely didn't tell Mrs. Wen and Zhang Di about the dirty and shameless things he did. He was the culprit who almost killed Chen Sini. After Yun Jian said this, Zhang Qingjun was really scared. She was cruel that day. She mercilessly stabbed the knife into his thigh. The pain was still vivid in his mind. I was wrong. It's all my fault. I'm the one who harmed Chen Sini. I'll kowtow and apologize. I'll kowtow and apologize. I'll go. I'll go. Zhang Qingjun shouted at Yun Jian and then told Mrs. Wen and Zhang Di what he did. Room 506. Chen Sini's head was held up and she couldn't move. Compared to a few days ago, her head didn't hurt as much, but she could still feel waves of pain. The pain from a few days ago made her feel that there was no hope for her to live in this world. Now, she was obviously much better. Chen Sini's mother, Xia, stood aside with her back to Chen Sini, wiping her tears. Chen Sini's father, Chen Jinchuan, stood aside and sighed in pain. Jinchuan, I've sent someone to ask around. This matter is not easy to handle. Zhang Qingjuan's father, Zhang Di, is a big shot. Even if we sue him, we won't get any benefits, one of Chen Jinchuan's friends said regretfully to Chen Jinchuan. As Chen Sini's father, Chen Jinchuan naturally didn't want to let the matter rest. Then what can I do? Am I supposed to just watch my daughter suffer like this for nothing? Chen Jinchuan stood at the door so that Chen Sini, who was in the ward, would not hear him. He suppressed his voice and said painfully. Was there really no way to deal with Zhang Qingjun, the culprit? Just as Chen Jinchuan and his friends were standing there and the atmosphere was at its lowest point, suddenly, a person was thrown in through the door. Everyone took a closer look. Wasn't this person Zhang Qingjun? Outside the door, Yun Jian threw Zhang Qingjun into the room and walked over. She stepped on Zhang Qingjuan's back in front of everyone and knocked Zhang Qingjuan's head hard in the direction of Chen Sini's bed. Then, Yun Jian turned around and shouted at the door, "You two, get in here and kowtow together." After that, Zhang Di and his wife, Mrs. Wen, who were still discussing how difficult it was to deal with, ran into the room trembling. They obediently knelt down in the direction of Chen Sini's bed. Chapter 1695. Everyone who saw this scene was petrified. Principal Shi, who was with Zhang Di and Mrs. Wen just now, sneaked away. Yun Jian didn't bother to care about him. After Principal Shi slipped away, Yun Jian directly pulled Zhang Qingjun and the other two into the ward. At this moment, seeing Zhang Qingjun, Zhang Di, and Mrs. Wen obediently listening to Yun Jian, they all knelt down and kowtowed to Chen Sini. Whether it was Chen Sini's father, Chen Jinchuan, or Chen Sini's mother, Xia, who was sobbing secretly at the side, blaming her daughter for what she had gone through. In the end, the culprit was still at large. Everyone, including Chen Sini's relatives who came to visit her in the hospital, saw this scene and couldn't help but be shocked. Of course, everyone present recognized Zhang Di. They had also seen Zhang Qingjuan's photo. Especially Chen Jinchuan. His daughter had suffered so much. If he didn't even know what the person who hurt his daughter looked like, how could he be a father? Therefore, the moment he saw Zhang Qingjun, Zhang Di, and Mrs. Wen being driven into the room by Yun Jian and kneeling down to apologize, Chen Jinchuan and his relatives and friends were all dumbfounded. Jinchuan, this is the middle-aged man, who had just said that Zhang Qingjuan's father was a big shot and difficult to deal with, saw this scene and came back to his senses after a long time. He had asked someone to ask whether Zhang Qingjuan's case could be solved. However, the news he got was that Zhang Qingjuan's father, Zhang Di, was very powerful. This was not easy to deal with. This also meant that even if Chen Sini couldn't be cured and died, it would be good for Chen Yaqing and Zhang Qingjun. Chen Jinchuan was not strong enough to deal with them at all. To be honest, if he was not strong enough and his family members were killed by others, nothing would happen to them at all. His family members died in vain. That was why the middle-aged man was so surprised. Who on earth was Yunjian? How could she make Zhang Di and Zhang Qingjun, who even he and Qin Jinchuan couldn't handle, obediently kowtow and apologize to Qin Sini? How capable was this little girl? How could she make such a big shot like Zhang Di and his son take the initiative to apologize to Qin Sini? Naturally, Qin Jinchuan didn't know the reason. He stared blankly at the scene in front of him. It wasn't hard to guess that Yun Jian must be capable. That was why Zhang Di and Zhang Qingjun came to apologize. However, before anyone could react, Yun Jian brought Zhang Di and Zhang Qingjun here to kowtow and apologize to Qin Sini. On the other side, Yun Jian stomped on Zhang Di's head, slamming it to the ground. Is that all you've got? I want you to kowtow and apologize, not wipe the floor and apologize. Yun Jian's chilling words rang in everyone's ears, eliciting a wave of fear in them. The fact that Zhang Di came to apologize to Qin Sini was shocking enough. It was something that no one had expected. But this little girl? She dared to step on Zhang Di's head and ask him to apologize to Qin Sini. Yes, yes, yes. I'm sorry, it's my son's fault. It's all my son Zhang Qingjuan's fault. I apologize to you here. I apologize to you. We won't dare to do it again. Zhang Di was afraid of Yun Jian. With Yun Jian stepping on his head, he kowtowed and apologized to Qin Sini. In the end, his forehead was almost bleeding. Yun Jian stepped on Zhang Di's head. Seeing that Zhang Qingjun didn't kowtow hard enough, she stepped on Zhang Qingjuan's head again. Only the sound of kowtowing could be heard. That sound alone was enough to make people's hair stand on end, not to mention those who experienced it themselves. It was only when the trio's heads were bleeding from the kowtowing that Yun Jian released her foot and took a step back. Everyone saw a handsome man coming in from outside the gate. The handsome man stood there, hugged Yun Jian's waist from behind, and whispered softly in her ear that everyone present could hear. Chapter 1696. Yun Jian's heart calmed down when she sensed the familiar aura. It's them. Yun Jian's back was pressed against Si Yi's chest. Her beautiful and slender fingers pointed at the three men kneeling in front of Qin Sini. Perhaps because Si Yi was here, her tense heart gradually relaxed. She even spoke in a coquettish tone. Of course, Si Yi was the only one who thought so. Yun Jian was already used to Si Yi coming to find her at any time. She leaned against Si Yi's sturdy chest and looked at the three men. If the people standing around hadn't seen Yun Jian's cruel methods against the three men, they would probably have thought that Yun Jian was the one being bullied. However, Yun Jian would only show this kind of attitude in front of Si Yi. Si Yi wrapped his arms around Yun Jian's slender waist. He felt Yun Jian's soft body and couldn't help but lean in close to Yun Jian's ear. He didn't hold back in front of everyone. Then I'll kill them, okay? Si Yi put his lips next to Yun Jian's ear as if he was coaxing a child. His sharp eyes sized up the three men. This handsome man who angered both men and gods actually kept saying the word kill. It was as if to him, killing someone was as simple as eating a mouthful of rice. At this moment, not only did the three men kneeling on the ground kowtow even harder, they cried out, "Don't kill me, I'll kowtow, I'll kowtow." Even Qin Sini's relatives were so frightened that their faces changed. From the moment Si Yi appeared, he gave everyone the feeling that, as long as Yun Jian was happy, even if she asked him to pluck the stars from the sky, he wouldn't complain at all. It was unbelievably indulgent. Every word he uttered was unimaginably indulgent. There was actually a man who pampered his woman so much in this world. Jian Jian, thank you. If it weren't for you, I'd be in hell now. You've been running around a lot for me these few days, get rid of them. I don't want to see these scum and trash of society anymore. Qin Sini spoke all of a sudden at this moment. Qin Sini couldn't move her head, so her voice came from the bed. Qin Sini was very touched, but she also felt a little guilty. Yun Jian had saved her life, and now Yun Jian had to run around to avenge her. That was why he told Zhang Qingjun and the others to scram so that he would not have to trouble Jian Jian. I'm so lucky to have a friend like you. If anything happens to you in the future, even if you want me to go to hell, I'll go for you. Chen Sini muttered a few words in her heart. There was no need to talk about repaying favors all the time. Those who truly repaid favors usually did so when they no longer needed you. Get lost. Yun Jian kicked Zhang Qingjun, who was closest to her, when she heard what Chen Sini said. This kick caused Zhang Qingjun and the other two to quickly get up from the ground. Zhang Qingjun was pulled back into the wheelchair, and the three of them ran away as fast as they could without looking back. It was true that Ce wanted to kill Zhang Qingjun and the other two men, but he did not want to let go of Yun Jian's tender body after a while. Could he be blamed? His Xiao Jian's charm was too great. He had to get her in bed sooner or later. Caress her soft body, hold her, and make a baby. Ce's hand was placed on Yun Jian's stomach without a trace. He pressed his lips together and thought wickedly. This place would bear his child sooner or later. Chapter 1697. Yun Jian did not know that Ce, who was hugging her, had her hand on her tummy and was still thinking about such naughty things. She left with Ce after exchanging a few words with Chen Sini. Chen Sini still needed to rest. When she left, Yun Jian bumped into Zhang Xiaofeng outside the People's Hospital. Master, you're here to see Sini? Why are you leaving so soon? Zhang Xiaofeng asked Yun Jian as he carried Chen Sini's favorite peach that he had just bought from a faraway place. We'll be leaving first. We still have to pick up my younger siblings from school, Yun Jian replied with a nod at Zhang Xiaofeng with pursed lips. Yun Jian had to pick up Xiao Yunju, Duanli, and Duanya from elementary school because Qin Yiru was working overtime today. Yun Jian did not go to the military academy because Chen Sini had taken leave for the past 2 days. She stayed at home to help Qin Yiru fetch Xiao Yunju and the other two from school. Yun Jian did not go to school these 2 days because Chen Sini was not in a good condition initially. If she went to school, Chen Sini's condition would worsen and she would be done for. Therefore, Yun Jian stayed in Longmen City instead of going to school. She could rush here immediately if there were any changes in Chen Sini's condition. Since Qin Yiru was working overtime today and Ce was back, Yun Jian and Ce went to the elementary school to pick up Xiao Yunju and the other two from school. Xiao Yunju's school did not allow parents to enter as they were afraid that criminals would raid the school. There were only children in the school. It would be bad if something happened to them. Therefore, parents were standing at the school gate to pick up their children. They were surrounded by parents. Yun Jian and Ce attracted a lot of attention because of their outstanding looks. Yun Jian was not short. She was already 1.65 meters tall. Ce's height of 1.85 meters was impressive. The two of them stood out in the crowd. However, what was even more eye-catching was that Ce was holding Yun Jian's small hand with one hand, while his other hand was lazily stuffed into his trouser pocket. His handsome face coupled with his figure was enough to make young girls, and even middle-aged women, scream. It was simply too conspicuous. Xiao Yunju and the other two ran out of the school and threw themselves in front of Yun Jian and Ce. Ce held Xiao Yunju's hand while Yun Jian held Duanli and Duanya's hands. The 5 of them left the crowd like a family. Ce and Yun Jian could still hear the murmurs of the crowd. Look, don't tell me those 3 children belong to that couple? Are you serious? That couple looks very young to me. That guy is so handsome. Some people just look so young. They might even be in their 20s or 30s. I think that girl is also very pretty. Walking together with that guy, they are really a match made in heaven. And look. They were holding the 3 children's hands as if they were their own. Ah. I'm about to be brainwashed by this scene. The group of female parents who were standing at the same spot were discussing fervently. However, they did not know that their words were all heard by Yun Jian and Ce. Yun Jian blushed, while Siyi's handsome lips curved upwards. He enjoyed this feeling very much. Sister. Sister. Brother Ce. When can you give birth to a little Ce for me to play with? Mama Qin said that babies need a year to be born. Can I see little Ce on this day next year? Xiao Yunzhu shook Siyi's large hand twice before looking at Yunjian and Ce with anticipation. Hearing Xiao Yunzhu's sudden question, Yunjian blushed but she did not say anything. You'll see, Ce said with a charming grin with a smirk where no one was looking. Xiao Yunzhu would see his and Xiao Jian's child sooner or later. It would not be a little Ce but a bunch of little Ces. Chapter 1698. As soon as they reached home, it started raining outside and the wind started blowing. The rain started drizzling, but it soon turned into a downpour and the weather changed. At this moment, Yunjian and Ce brought Xiao Yunzhu, Duan Ling Tian, and Duan Ling Tian into the house. As soon as they entered, Xiao Yunzhu, Duan Li, and Duanya ran to turn on the TV to watch the popular cartoon, Doraemon. If Qin Yiru was at home, she would have asked the three of them to finish their homework before playing. However, Xiao Yunzhu, Duan Li, and Duanya took advantage of the fact that their mother was not at home to watch the cartoon on TV. From time to time, they would laugh out loud at the characters in the cartoon. When Yunjian saw that Xiao Yunzhu, Duan Ling Tian, and Duan Ling Tian were having so much fun, her red lips curled into a beautiful smile. She instructed Ce to look after Xiao Yunzhu and Duan Ling Tian before returning to her room. Ce was very obedient and did not follow her. He sat beside the sofa where Xiao Yunzhu, Duan Ling Tian, and Duan Ling Tian were sitting. He placed his bony hands behind his head and closed his eyes lazily. His handsome face was so perfect that if there were anyone present, they would be amazed that such a handsome man existed in this world. Yunjian went back to her room to take a shower and change into a clean set of clothes. She went downstairs in less than 10 minutes. She even answered a call on the way. When she saw that Xiao Yunzhu, Duan Ling Tian, and Duan Ling Tian were still obediently watching the cartoon, Yunjian nodded to Ce. My mom just called me and asked me to bring her an umbrella. It's raining so heavily and she forgot to bring an umbrella. You stay at home and look after Xiao Zhu and Duan Ling Tian. Don't let them run around. To Ce, these words sounded like the instructions of a wife to her husband. His handsome lips curved as he silently agreed. Then, Yunjian walked to the front door, took 2 umbrellas from the umbrella rack, and walked out. Xiao Yunzhu and the other 2 naturally needed someone to accompany them at home. Yunjian didn't want Ce to go with her. He asked him to stay at home and watch over Xiao Yunzhu and the other 2. The wind and rain outside were even heavier. The rain was like basins of water pouring down from the sky. If there were pedestrians strolling on the streets, even if they had umbrellas, they would definitely be drenched. In this kind of weather, traffic police usually wouldn't stand on the road. Therefore, Yunjian drove her newly repaired LaFerrari supercar to the flower shop to pick up Qin Yiru from work. Yunjian's LaFerrari supercar was sent back to Ferrari's headquarters for repair after it was wrecked the last time. Yunjian stepped on the gas pedal amidst the heavy rain and howling wind. The car moved forward slowly, followed by a loud roar around them. Along with the fiery red supercar, it disappeared into the air. In the flower shop. The employees in the shop had already gotten off work. However, many of the employees who didn't bring umbrellas were standing at the front door, waiting for their relatives and friends to pick them up. The employees in the shop had changed. Many of Qin Yiru's employees had left. Most of the employees in the shop were middle-aged women who were around the same age as Qin Yiru. After all, they had a child mentality. At this moment, Qin Yiru was standing at the front door. A middle-aged woman asked Qin Yiru confidently, "Qin Yiru, does anyone send you?" "My daughter is coming to pick me up." Qin Yiru smiled at the middle-aged woman. This middle-aged woman was called Hu Yan. She was usually a very proud person. She was the most proud of her son. Now that she was talking to Qin Yiru, she couldn't help but show off that her son could afford a car. Is that so? Your daughter is sending you an umbrella? That's quite tiring. My son drove a Volkswagen. I told him not to come, but he still insisted on coming to pick me up. Hey. He's filial. I'm so lucky. Chapter 1699. After Hu Yan bragged in front of Qin Yiru, she did not forget to ask Qin Yiru if she wanted her son to give her a ride. There were only a handful of people who could afford a car in this era. In 1999, cars were only afforded to those who were symbolically rich in the country. In fact, many people were unwilling to buy a car even though they could afford it. That was because the cost of maintenance, fuel, and other expenses for a year was not something an ordinary person could afford. Hu Yan's family was not rich and could only be considered moderately well off. Qin Yiru only knew that Hu Yan's husband had passed away early and her son had been working for a few years since he was admitted to university. He bought a house in Longmen City, married a wife and bought a car, leading a tight life. Coincidentally, Hu Yan's son's wife had given birth and was in confinement, so she was brought to Longmen City from the countryside by her son. However, as a family, Hu Yan had no choice but to work at the florist and go home at night to wash the dishes and cook for her daughter-in-law. She could go home during lunchtime as well. During this time, Hu Yan would usually rush home to cook for her daughter-in-law and grandson. Otherwise, her son would not have brought her to Longmen City. With that in mind, Hu Yan had to perform better. Otherwise, she would be sent back to the countryside once her daughter-in-law's confinement was over. Moreover, her daughter-in-law had given birth to a chubby grandson for her. Hu Yan felt that it was all thanks to her son that she could move from the countryside to a big city like Longmen City. Her son was indeed promising. He even bought a car now, a common brand. Hu Yan felt that she was very impressive now, having earned enough face when she walked out. Qin Yiru was dressed normally, not too ostentatiously but not too shabbily either. Hu Yan thought that Qin Yiru's family background should be alright but it should be much worse compared to hers, so she came over to show off to Qin Yiru to gain some confidence. Right, Yiru, you told me earlier that you came from the countryside too. I don't think you've taken a private car before. My son's here to pick me up today. Don't walk back so hard. How about this? Let your daughter take our car when she comes to pick you up with an umbrella. What do you think? The more Hu Yan talked, the happier she became. She even wanted to show off in front of Qin Yiru's daughter, Yun Jian. In fact, Hu Yan had just started working at the flower shop recently. She was not familiar with Qin Yiru. However, Qin Yiru was easy to get along with, and Hu Yan was the kind of person who couldn't keep her mouth shut. The other employees in the flower shop were too lazy to talk to her. Naturally, she wanted to make her presence known in Qin Yiru's shop. Qin Yiru guessed that Yun Jian would drive to pick her up. Qin Yiru was not surprised that her daughter could drive, because Yun Jian had to learn everything under Gu Junjian. Driving was very important during missions. Sometimes, it could even save one's life. I don't think so. My daughter. Qin Yiru was more easygoing, so she had just spoken when she was interrupted. She heard the sound of a horn. Honk, honk, honk. A black Volkswagen stopped next to the flower shop. A man got out of the Volkswagen with an umbrella and walked quickly to Hu Yan. Mom, I'm here to pick you up from work. Seeing the man's Volkswagen, the other employees in the flower shop couldn't help but exclaim, a Volkswagen. How much money must he have to pay to afford it? If you don't have at least 100,000 yuan at home, you won't dare to buy a car. Wow. He's really rich. Hearing the discussions around her, Hu Yan's heart almost flew to the sky. She pretended to be calm and said to Qin Yiru, don't be so polite. Later, let your daughter who came with an umbrella take my car back. Who knew that just as she finished speaking, a fiery red supercar in the distance sped over like lightning. It drifted and suddenly stopped. Whose car is this? Hey, I think this car is not cheap. I've never seen such a beautiful car. The people around her immediately exclaimed. Hu Yan also straightened her eyes and was slightly envious. However, just as Hu Yan was envious, she saw the girl sitting in the car open the door and get out with an umbrella. Then, she walked straight to Qin Yiru and stood in front of Qin Yiru. "Mom, let's go home." Hearing this, Hu Yan's eyes suddenly widened. Qin Yiru's family has a car. Moreover, it's a car with only 2 seats and an unknown brand? Just as she thought of this, everyone present heard Hu Yan's son suddenly change his expression. He pointed at Yun Jian's car with a trembling hand and exclaimed, "That. Isn't that the limited edition Ferrari LaFerrari which is only sold in the world? There are only 3 of these cars in the world, and each of them is sold at a sky-high price. It's already out of production. If you want to buy such a supercar, and a limited edition one at that, you can't even talk about it without 10 million yuan. Chapter 1700. 10 million. This car needs 10 million to buy. Everyone present only heard the number in his words, and immediately, everyone's faces changed greatly from fright. Hu Yan, in particular, who had been particularly smug in front of Qin Yiru just now, had her mouth agape and exclaimed after her son spoke. "Mom, 10 million is not enough to buy this car. I mean, if you don't have 10 million, don't even think about talking about this car. This is the world's flagship, limited edition supercar. A supercar that even rich people can't buy. The people who can buy it must be someone who has a lot of influence in the world. That's why I'm shocked that such a supercar would appear here." Hu Yan's son interrupted Hu Yan after she finished speaking. It was obvious that Hu Yan's son had done some research on limited edition supercars. Hu Yan was originally showing off in front of Qin Yiru, but she never expected that the person who broke her bragging rights was her son. At that moment, Hu Yan's face was extremely dark. What she said to Qin Yiru just now was a joke. "I wanted to tell you that my daughter should be driving here to pick me up." Qin Yiru looked at Hu Yan and smiled awkwardly. She didn't mean to embarrass Hu Yan, but Hu Yan didn't give her a chance to explain. After Hu Yan heard Qin Yiru's words, her face became even darker. "This car is so beautiful. It cost more than 10 million, how can it not be beautiful? This car belongs to Qin Yiru's daughter, right? My God, her daughter is so young, but she can afford such an expensive car. It's a blessing to have a daughter. Sons nowadays aren't of much use after giving birth to them. Daughters are better." A series of conversations came from the surroundings. Hu Yan's face became even darker when she heard the voices of the flower shop employees who were waiting for their relatives and friends to pick them up. Hu Yan had always been proud that she had a son. Moreover, Hu Yan's son was so promising that he even brought her out of the countryside to live in the big city. The few neighbors in the countryside were envious. At that time, Hu Yan thought that her son was the most capable person in the world. However, at this moment, she felt that what she said in front of Qin Yiru just now was enough to embarrass her for the rest of her life. The Volkswagen that his son had bought had only cost about 50 to 60,000 yuan. However, Qin Yiru's daughter's car, thinking of this, Hu Yan felt that something was wrong. Qin Yiru's daughter was so young, how could she afford such an expensive sports car? Looking at Yun Jian's appearance, she was so beautiful that people couldn't take their eyes off her. She suddenly had a feeling of realization. Hu Yan then looked up at Qin Yiru and spoke bluntly in front of the crowd, "You're right. Qin Yiru, how much did your daughter spend on this car? She bought such an expensive car. Why are you still working at our flower shop? Don't tell me that this car was given to her by her man." On the surface, Hu Yan was saying that Yun Jian's car was given to her by her man. However, as long as one was not stupid, they could tell that she was lying. Did Yun Jian become someone's mistress or mistress? Did she get this car by being a mistress? After hearing Hu Yan's words, Qin Yiru naturally couldn't hold back her anger. She could tolerate it if others talked bad about her, but she couldn't tolerate it if they talked bad about her daughter, Yun Jian. There was no reason. This was probably the so-called motherly love. Qin Yiru was about to retort, but Yun Jian pulled Qin Yiru's sleeve and stopped Qin Yiru from speaking. When others saw Yun Jian pulling Qin Yiru, they really thought that Yun Jian got the car by being a mistress and that her man gave it to her. Hu Yan looked at Yun Jian with contempt again. However, just when everyone was looking down on Yun Jian's voice rang out. Her voice reached everyone's ears. Chapter 1701. Yun Jian's words made it clear that she had bought the car with her own money as well as another point. She had 40 to 50 sports cars at home that cost the same as the Ferrari LaFerrari. 40 to 50 cars? What kind of concept was that? Based on 1999's price and income ratio, a normal person might not even earn 1 million in a lifetime. What about Yun Jian? This Ferrari LaFerrari is worth 50 million renminbi. 50 million was a sky-high price. It was only the price of a car. That was not all. Yun Jian said that she had 40 to 50 sports cars like this at home. If a car cost 50 million, then 40 to 50 cars, just to buy a car, wouldn't the price be more than 2 billion? 2 billion. This could not be described as an astronomical figure. For a moment, everyone present was completely shocked by Yun Jian's words. Even the richest man in the country in this era would only have a few billion or tens of billions, right? Who would give their lover or mistress so much money? What kind of joke was this? Hence, Hu Yan's disdain for Yun Jian was self-evident. Mom, let's go home. Yun Jian did not bother to continue talking to Hu Yan. She walked over and pulled Qin Yiru to the entrance of the flower shop. She opened her umbrella and was about to leave. Hey! Yiru. Just now, my mouth was cheap. You know me, right? I'm not a bad person. It's just that my mouth is especially cheap. Just now, I even let my son send you off. Today, can you let your daughter send me off? Hu Yan called out to Qin Yiru. Her expression changed very quickly. She went from calling Qin Yiru by her real name to calling her Yiru. Her expression changed too quickly. Of course, Hu Yan thought that if Yun Jian was willing to give her a ride, she would be so proud of herself. When she went out in the future, she would probably brag that she had ridden in an extinct sports car like the Ferrari LaFerrari. Just when Hu Yan thought that Qin Yiru was easy to bully and would definitely let her daughter give her a ride in her family sports car. However, Yun Jian didn't give Hu Yan a chance to catch her breath. She directly interrupted Hu Yan. My car can only seat 2 people. The passenger seat will only carry my mother, not any dogs. Yun Jian actually compared Hu Yan to a canine? In other words, wouldn't he be like a dog? You. Hu Yan felt like her heart was about to explode when she heard what Yun Jian said. In the end, she could only watch as Yun Jian and Qin Yiru left. When they got home, Qin Yiru made dinner. Xiao Yunju and the other 2 reluctantly put down the remote control and ran to do their homework because Qin Yiru was back. When Qin Yiru was cooking dinner, she told Yun Jian that she planned to let Mrs. Yang take care of Xiao Yunju and the twins for 2 days while she went back to Xinjiang town. According to Zhang Meihua, Qin Fangfang's condition was better, but the neighbors were still gossiping. This made Qin Fangfang, who had just gotten over the pain of her husband's affair, upset again. Therefore, she asked Qin Yiru to go back. Since it was not winter yet, the bus from Longmen City back to Xinjiang town was at 6 o'clock at the latest. Qin Yiru would probably go back today. It was raining outside, but the downpour had already subsided. Mom, I'll go with you, Yun Jian suddenly spoke up. Xiao Jian, what are you talking about? Just stay in Longmen City. Besides, AE's here. Qin Yiru persuaded Yun Jian with a look at Ce. I'll go wherever Xiao Jian wants to go. Ce's lips moved as he looked at Yun Jian affectionately. If Yun Jian wanted to go back to Xinjiang town with Qin Yiru, he would follow. Even if his Xiao Jian wanted to go to hell, as long as she wanted to go, he would go with her. Chapter 1702. In fact, Qin Yiru wanted Yun Jian to go back with her as well. With Yun Jian around, Qin Yiru felt more confident. To Qin Yiru, Yun Jian was not only her daughter but also her hope in life. The closer it was to the Gaokao, the busier Yun Yi was. Now, Yun Yi was even studying in school during the weekend and rarely went home. Even when she was home, she was busy dating Qin Yu. Qin Yiru had not seen her son for a long time. Fortunately, her daughter was with her. Now that the son-in-law she had acknowledged was doting on her daughter, Qin Yiru was very satisfied with her current life. After dinner, Xiao Yunju and the other two girls were sent to Mrs. Yang's house. Mrs. Yang was very kind to Xiao Yunju and the girls, so Xiao Yunju and the others liked to visit her house. It was also because of this that Qin Yiru would ask Mrs. Yang to take care of the children for her whenever she needed help. After settling Xiao Yunju and the other two girls in Mrs. Yang's house, Qin Yiru, Yun Jian, and Ce boarded the bus to Xinjiang town. It was not Ce's first time taking the bus, but if it were not for Yun Jian, he would never take the stupid bus. Coincidentally, it was the last bus from Longmen City to Xinjiang town at 6:00. The bus was crowded, almost collapsing. Although they had a car at home, Yun Jian usually did not drive around. After all, she did not have a driver's license in country Z. Ce and Yun Jian's car usually had 2 seats, but Ce's Lamborghini had a back seat, but it was very cramped. Xiao Yunju and the other two girls could sit in the back seat of the Lamborghini, but Qin Yiru and Yun Jian could not even straighten their backs if they sat there. Therefore, he simply chose to take the bus. Coincidentally, all the seats on the last bus had been taken, so Yun Jian, Ce, and Qin Yiru were all standing and holding onto the handrail. Finally, someone got out of the car halfway and vacated a seat beside Ce. Without hesitation, Ce gave her seat to Qin Yiru. He used his tall and slender figure to protect Yun Jian, preventing any of the men standing on the side of the aisle from touching her. "Huh, young man, is this your girlfriend? Why are you protecting him so tightly?" A middle-aged man asked Ce as he grabbed the armrest. Because there were no seats, and this era was not like now, where everyone had a cell phone in their hands. Standing on the bus while holding onto the handrail was a very boring thing to do. This uncle had nothing to do, so when he saw Ce hugging Yun Jian like she was a treasure, he couldn't help but chat with Ce. "She's my wife." Ce didn't look at the uncle. His handsome eyes were looking straight at Yun Jian, and he didn't sound shy at all when he spoke. "Wife? You're still young, right? You're already married?" the uncle asked with a smile. After being asked this question, Yun Jian had a bad premonition. As expected, when Ce took out his and Yun Jian's marriage certificate and showed it to the uncle, even the uncle was a little embarrassed. "Ahem. This, young man, you still carry your marriage certificate with you?" the uncle laughed awkwardly. "Yes." Ce only responded softly. "You must love your girlfriend, your wife very much, right?" the uncle almost asked the wrong question, but he immediately reacted and corrected himself. "For her, I can give up everything." Ce reached out and rubbed Yun Jian's head as he spoke. "Including life," Ce added in his heart. At this moment, the bus driver suddenly saw a pedestrian running towards the middle of the road. He was so frightened that he slammed on the brakes. The bus suddenly braked, and the passengers on the bus swayed and fell forward. The bus was already very crowded, so there was no space to retreat. The surrounding people were all middle-aged men who smelled of sweat. Ce was a clean freak, so he didn't like to come into contact with these people. But when the bus driver slammed on the brakes, he didn't even hesitate to turn around and hug Yun Jian, causing the people who smelled of sweat to fall on him. When they fell on him, he didn't even cry out in pain. Instead, he looked straight at Yun Jian, constantly checking to see if Yun Jian was scratched or hurt. Chapter 1703. Qin Yiru was sitting beside them. She had seen how Ce shielded Yun Jian just now. Watching how Ce shielded Yun Jian and how he did not even frown when people bumped into him, still shielding Yun Jian with his sturdy frame, Qin Yiru opened her mouth to say something but kept it shut in the end. Qin Yiru had an indescribable feeling when she saw how protective he was of her daughter. Her daughter was so lucky to have met a good kid like Ce. If Qin Yiru's inner monologue was heard by Ce, he would probably blurt it out. Meeting her was the happiest thing that had ever happened to him. Taking the last bus back to Xinjiang town from Longmen City, the bus was so crowded that even the air on the bus was stale. It was stuffy and smelly. Yun Jian did not feel any bumps on the way because Ce stood behind her and held her in his arms, preventing anyone from touching her. Qin Yiru only saw Ce shielding her daughter but did not notice that when Ce shielded Yun Jian, he bent his lean back and lowered his head slightly to press his thin lips to Yun Jian's ear intimately. His large palms were even more stimulating. Ce and Yun Jian were standing beside Qin Yiru as he wrapped his large palms around her waist and placed them in front of her abdomen. Yun Jian's breasts were huge, especially when she was still in her growing phase. Even today, Yun Jian could not hide her voluptuous breasts even if she wore a loose top. Ce's bracelets were placed slightly above Yun Jian's flesh-free abdomen. He could even feel the bottom of her perky breasts. Qin Yiru did not notice that Ce had secretly taken a few bites of her daughter as her eyes were filled with relief. She was glad that her daughter had met someone who loved her as much as Ce. It was true that Ce doted on Yun Jian and planned to dote on her to the core. It was only when they arrived at Xinjiang town and got off the bus that Yun Jian breathed in the fresh air. The sky was completely dark by then. The uncle who spoke to Ce just now was from Xinjiang town as well. Before he left, he tiptoed with a grin to pat Ce's shoulder and gave Ce a thumbs up. Good lads who dote on their wives. The young lady has good taste to be with you at such a young age. With that, the uncle shook his head with a smile and walked further and further away. After the uncle left, his words made Yun Jian's cheeks moisten slightly. Let's go. Qin Yiru led Yun Jian and Ce back to Zhang Meihua's house. After dinner, regardless of whether it was a village or a town, people who did not need to go to work after a busy day would gather in front of a house and chat endlessly. When Qin Yiru brought Yun Jian and Ce to Zhang Meihua's house, there was a group of old women sitting in front of her house. There were a few young ladies standing beside the group of old women who were very outstanding. The reason why these young girls stood together with the group of old women was to show off their youthfulness in front of the old women, or to show off and gain a sense of superiority. It was not hard to tell that these young ladies were the group of old women's nieces or granddaughters. The old women were bringing their nieces or granddaughters to show off to each other. Qin Fangfang was sitting on a bench beside the group of old women. The surrounding old women were talking to Qin Fangfang and were trying their best to persuade her. Fangfang, we all watched you grow up. Now that something like this happened to you, sigh, this old woman was already soft on Qin Fangfang. Some of them did not like Qin Fangfang and directly spoke to her. Let me say something. Your husband cheated on you, but it's not without reason. You've been married to him for so many years. He's from a wealthy family. You didn't even give birth to a child for him. Who can stand it? If it were me, I would have cheated too. When Qin Fangfang married into a wealthy family, Zhang Meihua had always bragged about her daughter marrying into a wealthy family. Now that these old women saw that Qin Fangfang was down, they could not help but add insult to injury. Hey, you can't say that. She was just chased back to her mother's house. You can't say that. You'll hurt her feelings. Another old woman rolled her eyes at Qin Fangfang. Zhang Meihua was not sitting there at this time. Naturally, she did not know that these people were criticizing her daughter. Otherwise, she would not have agreed to these old women insulting her most beloved daughter. Chapter 1704. Don't say that. Fangfang is a good child. It's all that bastard son's fault for not being able to control his lower body. Why are you blaming Fangfang? As long as he's a man, he shouldn't be looking for women outside. If I see him, I'll kill him. Among the group of old ladies present, not all of them were here to hit Qin Fangfang when she was down. One of them, Granny Xia, was sitting beside Qin Fangfang. When she saw Qin Fangfang close her eyes in pain, her heart tightened. Granny Xia reached out to stroke Qin Fangfang's back to comfort her while retorting to the old women who were kicking her when she was down. Granny Xia was already in her 70s. Granny Xia's husband passed away early and she became a widow at the age of 40. Knowing that Granny Xia was lonely at home, Qin Fangfang often went to Granny Xia's house when she was young. Granny Xia was very important to Qin Fangfang. Granny Xia did not have any children. She treated Qin Fangfang as her own daughter. She also watched as Qin Fangfang married into a wealthy family outside the province. To Granny Xia, even though Qin Fangfang rarely came back these years, she still looked forward to it. Whenever Qin Fangfang returned to Xinjiang town, she would visit Granny Xia. Now, something like this had happened. Qin Fangfang's bastard husband from a wealthy family, Sun Baiwen, actually cheated on her. He even brought his mistress home openly. Qin Fangfang had returned to Xinjiang town and returned to her parents' home. However, Zhang Meihua had always talked about her daughter marrying into a wealthy family. She used to be glorious. When Qin Fangfang returned to Xinjiang town in the past, she had never bragged to anyone. However, Zhang Meihua had bragged for her for so many years. Now that Qin Fangfang was unfortunately in dire straits, the old women who had been bragging to Zhang Meihua for so many years found a chance to mock and ridicule Qin Fangfang. Granny Xia could not stand it anymore and shouted for everyone to stop. Don't keep looking for reasons on the man. There must be something hidden when the man cheats. If you ask me, so what if your man cheats? You should go back. Take the family's assets and let the man go out to play. Let him do whatever he wants. It's fine as long as the money is in your hands. The old woman sitting by the side was very experienced and advised Qin Fangfang to go back and not get a divorce. Qin Fangfang obviously didn't want to listen to the old woman's words. She lowered her head. After listening to the old woman's words, she really couldn't take it anymore and walked towards the door. Just as she stood up, Madame Fan grabbed Qin Fangfang's hand and refused to let her go. The old woman who had said that Qin Fangfang couldn't give birth to a child for Sun Baiwen grabbed Qin Fangfang's hand and refused to let her leave. Don't go, we're just concerned about you. Besides, that's the truth. If you work hard and give birth to a son or daughter for your future husband, he won't cheat on you. Being scolded for not being able to have children was Qin Fangfang's bottom line. It was also something she hated to hear the most. The old woman, Madame Fan, even grabbed Qin Fangfang's hand and refused to let her go. This scene was witnessed by Qin Yiru, who was walking over from afar. Qin Yiru was so protective of her sister that even Qin Yiru did not realize that she was born weak. Now, she had the courage to dash forward and grab Madame Fan's hand, flinging her away. Then, she shouted at Madame Fan. Let go of my sister. Yun Jian and Ce followed closely behind. When Qin Yiru flung her hand away, Madame Fan's body jerked backward and she almost fell down. After she steadied herself, Madame Fan glared angrily at Qin Yiru, who had suddenly appeared and pushed her. She scolded Qin Yiru mercilessly. Oh, is Yiru from the Qin family back? You Qin sisters are really something. Both of you are divorced and chased back to your parents' home. Those who don't know would think that your daughters have contracted some kind of illness. Slap. Before Madame Fan could finish her sentence, a huge slap came at her. In the next second, Madame Fan felt dizzy and was flung a few meters away. When the crowd saw this, they quickly turned around in shock and saw Yun Jian, who had slapped Madame Fan, standing in front of them. After Madame Fan was flung away, she strode forward and grabbed Madame Fan's collar, saying coldly. Chapter 1705. Yun Jian's slap was so powerful that it sent the person flying several meters away. This action shocked the old women and the young girls standing around. Are you Qin Yiru's daughter, Yun Jian? One of the old women recognized Yun Jian. She was stunned and then dumbfounded. Qin Yiru's daughter, Yun Jian, was New Cruise's director. This news had spread throughout Xinjiang town. Yun Jian's reputation was known by everyone in Xinjiang town. Moreover, when Qin Yiru remarried, Yun Jian had organized her wedding single-handedly. She had laid out the red carpet from Zhang Meihua's house to Gu Yunjian's house. More than 20 sports cars had been sent to the wedding, some of which were limited edition sports cars. The wedding half a year ago had caused a sensation in Xinjiang town. Qin Yiru's daughter, Yun Jian's name had spread throughout Xinjiang town at that time. Therefore, it was not surprising that the old woman could recognize Yun Jian. Miss Fan, who had been sent flying by Yun Jian's kick and grabbed by the collar, had wanted to retaliate against Yun Jian. However, when she heard the other old woman mention that Yun Jian was New Cruise's director, she was stunned. Grandma. Who is she? How can she hit an old woman? Doesn't she know how to respect the old and love the young? The old women in Xinjiang town had spread the news that Qin Yiru had given birth to a powerful daughter. However, the few young girls who rarely returned to Xinjiang town and would occasionally return to the countryside to show off after getting good grades in school did not know who Yun Jian was. One of the girls, who was rather petite and had a pair of slender and fair thighs, had spotted Ce from afar. It went without saying that young girls would pay attention to the opposite sex. She had seen Ce walking toward them while holding Yun Jian's hand from afar. Ce's handsome silhouette coupled with his messy hair and tall frame made him look like an almighty god, attracting the girls' gazes. The petite girl had taken a liking to Ce at first glance. At the same time, she did not have a good impression of Yun Jian. Seeing that Yun Jian had sent Madame Fan flying with a kick, the girl called out to an old woman standing beside her. The girl's name was Suya. Suya had spoken very loudly to her grandmother when she had accused Yun Jian of not respecting the old. She had spoken so loudly because she wanted Ce to hear her. She wanted Ce to see Yun Jian shamelessly hitting the old woman, so that Ce would dislike Yun Jian. Suya herself did not like the old woman from the bottom of her heart. However, in front of others, she still pretended to be very kind and showed her best side to the public. When the surrounding girls heard Suya's words, they all said that Yun Jian was impolite for hitting the old woman. When everyone spoke up to this point, they saw Ce take 2 steps toward Yun Jian. When the girls saw this, they almost screamed because of Ce's handsome figure. Just when everyone thought that Ce would go forward to pull Yun Jian away and save Miss Fan, Ce stepped forward. Under everyone's gaze, Ce took Yun Jian's hand and pulled Yun Jian into his embrace. Then, he kicked Miss Fan, who was lying on the ground pretending to be dead. This kick was far more vicious than Yun Jian's. With a cold expression, Ce kicked Miss Fan into the grass more than 10 meters away. Then, he hugged Yun Jian, his handsome face expressionless. He took out his phone from his trouser pocket and dialed the number without looking at it. The moment the call connected, Ce ordered the person on the other end of the phone in front of everyone. Chapter 1706. Remember, when he said he was going to annihilate Fan Shi, he was going to annihilate her entire family. Everyone's expression darkened when they heard Ce's words. Especially Suya and the other girls who wanted Ce to think that Yun Jian was a girl who disrespected the elderly and wanted Ce to lose all affection for Yun Jian when he realized this. Now, they were pale with fright. They had thought that Yun Jian had gone overboard just now. In comparison, Ce was so much more ruthless than Yun Jian. He was going to annihilate Fan Shi's entire family just because of what she said. Was he going to kill Fan Shi just because of what she said just now? Moreover, Ce's actions just now terrified the girls. Could it be that he was from the underworld? Ce hung up without waiting for the person on the other end to reply and pulled Yun Jian into his arms. Looking at Yun Jian's face that he could not bear to let go of, Ce's chilling words spread to every corner of the venue, sending chills down everyone's spine. Everyone here, listen up. If I hear any of you bad-mouthing my mother-in-law in the future, I'll annihilate your entire family. Ce's gaze on Yun Jian was gentle, but his words to the crowd were chilling like winter ice. Qin Yiru was Xiao Jian's mother, which meant that she was his mother as well. Ce had never experienced a mother's love, but he had received Qin Yiru's care. To Ce, Qin Yiru was Yunjian's mother as well as his mother. Naturally, he would not let his mother be bullied. If Adam and Shuang were here to hear what Ce said, they would probably be mocking him. They were not even officially married yet and their young master was already calling her mother-in-law. How shameless. Of course, if Adam and Shuang said that in front of Ce, they would definitely be banished to the Amazon forest for a few years by Ce. Once Ce spoke, the gossipy old women and the girls who had bad-mouthed Yunjian shuddered and gulped. Go, 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 it's too scary. Let's go home. The old women around them were smart as well. When they heard Ce's words, they left the place like they were fleeing. Those young girls were the granddaughters or nieces of the old women. When the old women left, these young girls were naturally taken away with them. Soon, the place quieted down. Madame Fan, the old woman who had bad-mouthed Qin Yiru and Qin Fangfang, crawled over from the lawn and knelt in front of Qin Yiru. She knew that if Yunjian was capable, Ce would not be too bad. Qin Yiru. Yiru. Save me. Save me. I spoke too fast just now. You can't let your son-in-law treat me this way. I'm a dutiful person. It's my fault, it's my fault. I won't do it again. I beg you. Please let me go. Madame Fan knew that Qin Yiru was easy to talk to, so she kowtowed desperately to Qin Yiru to admit her mistake. Although Madame Fan had gone overboard with her words, Qin Yiru still had to return to Xinjiang town. She did not want her son-in-law, Ce, to be called a cold-blooded devil. Therefore, Qin Yiru asked Ce to just teach her a lesson and not kill her. Ce did not respond at first, but when Qin Yiru told Yunjian did not wait for Ce to finish before Ce agreed. I'll listen to you. He would only listen to her, even if he had to climb a mountain of swords or plunge into a sea of fire. Qin Yiru sighed in relief when Ce agreed. After all, she was from Xinjiang town and had to live there. If Ce really destroyed the Fan family, who would dare to get close to her in Xinjiang town? Ce could not help but rub Yunjian's head. Chapter 1707. Although Madame Fan was not destroyed, in the next few days, she continued to receive news that her son's company went bankrupt, her daughter-in-law wanted a divorce, and her daughter's husband's family went bankrupt overnight. They could not even afford to live on the streets. Madame Fan suddenly thought of Ce when she heard the news and vomited blood. After this incident, the people of Xinjiang town spread the news that Qin Yiru had a son-in-law who doted on her daughter Yunjian to the extreme. Of course, everything that happened after the appeal was a story for later. After Madame Fan returned home, Qin Yiru led Ce and Yunjian into Zhang Meihua's house. After comforting Zhang Meihua, Qin Yiru went downstairs to help Zhang Meihua prepare dinner. Even though Zhang Meihua had done some terrible things to her in the past, she was still her mother. Sometimes, people were so helpless. Living in the present, if one was too weak, even one's own parents would look down on them. Some people would give up on themselves, while others would rush to the top to show that they were not ordinary people. Qin Yiru probably belonged to the former. Of course, she did not have the ability to become the latter. But looking down on herself was one thing. Parents were still parents. Zhang Meihua gave birth to her after 10 months of pregnancy. That night, Yunjian slept with Ce. However, the room next door was Qin Yiru's room. The room's soundproofing was very poor. Yunjian kept avoiding Ce's touch and rubbing. In the end, she followed his path and was touched the whole night, cough cough. Early the next morning, Ce had to rush back to an Hun organization. As the leader of an organization, he always had endless things to do. Yunjian naturally understood. I'll look for you in a few days. When Yunjian said to look for him, she meant to go to an Hun organization. Okay. Ce hugged Yunjian's soft body and bent down to kiss Yunjian's forehead and lips for a while. At this moment, Ce and Yunjian were standing at the staircase. After kissing for a while, Ce let go of Yun Jian when he heard footsteps around them and left. Yun Jian went back to Xinjiang Town High School in the afternoon. This was the first place she stayed after her rebirth. After taking a stroll around Xinjiang Town High School, the scenery around them had changed. When she got home, Qin Yiru made mung bean soup. Just as Yun Jian picked up the mung bean soup and took a sip, there was a commotion at the entrance. Yun Jian, you're inside, aren't you? Get out here. Yun Jian's gaze flickered when she heard the insults, but she walked out anyway. A familiar figure appeared in front of her. It was Lin Mengyu. The moment she saw Lin Mengyu, even Yun Jian was slightly surprised. She saw many people standing around Lin Mengyu. Yun Jian had a good memory. She could tell that the people standing around Lin Mengyu were all Xinjiang Town High School students. They were her classmates. More than a year ago, the first person she met after her rebirth was, strictly speaking, Lin Mengyu and her little follower. At that time, Lin Mengyu pushed her head into the school's toilet. She had punished Lin Mengyu after that. Why was she here again? Yun Jian, you used to be so arrogant just because you were capable. Humph. Let me tell you, I've been learning martial arts from an expert for the past year. I've already learned all of my master's ultimate skills. Today, I've called some of our former classmates here so that everyone can be witnesses. I, Lin Mengyu, will defeat you today. I'll wipe away all the humiliation. Today, I'll return all the humiliation you've brought to me. Lin Mengyu clenched her fists and gritted her teeth as she looked at Yun Jian's face that was even prettier than before. There were many onlookers. Qin Yiru had just gone to Xinjiang Town's market to buy groceries. Lin Mengyu brought a large group of people over. When the neighbors heard the commotion, they all came over to see what was going on. You want to fight me? Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and looked coldly at Lin Mengyu. Lin Mengyu hated her to the core because of Yuan Yingjun. She did not expect her to be so unrepentant after so long. That's right. My master taught me all of his ultimate skills. I guarantee that you'll be looking for your teeth on the floor. Lin Mengyu glared hatefully at Yun Jian and yelled. Yun Jian smirked and stood in front of Lin Mengyu fearlessly, declaring arrogantly, "You're right." Chapter 1708. What Yun Jian said was not a secret. At least, it had spread throughout the Min City Military Academy. She was not afraid of Qin Yiru finding out. Moreover, Qin Yiru was not at home now as she had gone to the market to buy groceries. The neighbors had also gathered here because of Lin Mengyu's arrival with a large group of people. They were surrounded by people. When Yun Jian had just been reborn, Lin Mengyu's ribs had been broken by Yun Jian. After being bedridden for a few months, she had met Yun Jian again and wanted to get rid of Yun Jian. However, in the end, she could not even lay a finger on Yun Jian. Lin Mengyu was the daughter of Xinjiang Town's principal. In a small place like Xinjiang Town, Lin Mengyu was considered a spoiled child compared to her peers. As the daughter of Xinjiang Town's principal, when had she ever been bullied? The first time in her life that she had been humiliated was at the hands of Yun Jian. She would remember this grudge for the rest of her life. Just as Lin Mengyu was looking at Yun Jian with confidence, she and the people around them heard Yun Jian's words. Before going to the hunting school, Z country held a selection competition for the best special forces in the country. It was not a secret that could not be told to others. Therefore, as long as one was concerned about these matters, they would be able to get the news from various channels. Reality proved that there were only 3 spots for the hunting school and the competition for the spots was very intense. Many middle-aged and elderly people in Xinjiang Town who liked to read newspapers wanted to know which 3 people had obtained the right to go to the hunting school, but to no avail. Yun Jian's words had stirred up everyone's emotions. For a moment, everyone stared at Yun Jian with widened eyes in shock and horror. Did you participate in the selection competition? A middle-aged man who liked to read newspapers looked at Yun Jian with fear in his eyes as he exclaimed. Some of Yun Jian's classmates who had been called over by Lin Mengyu when they were in Xinjiang Town School heard the conversation between Yun Jian and the middle-aged man. They all looked at Yun Jian in shock. So what? However, before Yun Jian could answer, Lin Mengyu suddenly interrupted everyone. She pointed her finger at Yun Jian and stared at Yun Jian fiercely. She looked like she wanted to tear Yun Jian into pieces. Tell me, do you dare to fight me or not? Lin Mengyu pointed her finger at Yun Jian. She gritted her teeth and shouted at Yun Jian. Leader, softer, softer. At the same time as the incident in Longmen City, Xinjiang town, Leng Mei was caught by Di Lin in Blood Doll and pinned down to do unspeakable things to her. After being brought back by Di Lin, Leng Mei had been bullied on the bed for 3 days and 3 nights. At this moment, Leng Mei was hugging Di Lin's head and letting Di Lin move up and down on her body. Leng Mei was Di Lin's lover. This was something everyone in the Blood Doll organization knew. After the former leader of Blood Doll, who was also Di Lin's father, passed away and Di Lin became the leader of Blood Doll, he made it clear that he wanted Leng Mei to be his lover. Leng Mei was only an assassin in Blood Doll and was saved by Di Lin's father. She had no right to refuse. She had always thought that Di Lin only wanted a woman to warm his bed and vent his lust, so she had never harbored any improper thoughts. She was already prepared to die when she was caught trying to assassinate Yun Jian. She did not expect that Yun Jian would not kill her and even let her stay with Qin Yu and Gu Nianji. Now that she had been caught by Di Lin for so long, her waist was about to break from being bullied. Leng Mei had even begun to plan to escape from Di Lin. Di Lin did not like her anyway. After she left him, she would simply find him another woman to warm his bed. Leng Mei had already made up her mind. What are you thinking about? Di Lin asked after he finished venting his lust on Leng Mei and put on his clothes, sitting beside her as if nothing had happened. It was only then that Leng Mei snapped out of her trance. She pulled the blanket over herself and glanced at Di Lin carefully. Nothing. After that, Leng Mei put on her clothes swiftly and headed out the door as usual. He did not like her staying in his room after every session, so she left on her own accord. Chapter 1709. I made a bowl of chicken soup for you in the kitchen just now. It'll burn if you don't turn off the fire. Leng Mei had indeed made a bowl of chicken soup, but it was just an excuse for her to leave. She thought that as long as she left and sent a woman back in time, their chief would definitely forget about her after some time. Leng Mei still wanted to return to Xinjiang town to play mahjong with Qin Yu and Gu Nianji. Have someone send it over. Stay here. Di Lin held Leng Mei's wrist tightly. He never had a reason to do anything he wanted her to do. But I made it myself. I want to serve it to you personally. Leng Mei did not expect her chief to change so much after her return. She quickly found another excuse. All right. Di Lin was relieved when he heard that she had made it herself. Leng Mei then hurried to the door. Just as she reached the door, Di Lin's voice rang, "Come back quickly." Leng Mei paused, her gaze wavering slightly before she nodded. Yes. Leng Mei ran straight to Blood Doll's training ground after leaving the room and met Ruo Yin. You're really running? Ruo Yin held her forehead looking at Leng Mei. Quick. Lend me your helicopter. Leng Mei came over and hugged Ruo Yin's shoulders. If I were you, I'd stay by the chief's side obediently. Can't you see that the chief loves you so much? Ruo Yin could not help reminding her. Leng Mei's hand froze as she wavered. She actually loved Di Lin very much. However, if he really loved her, she had been with him for so many years. Why would he still? I'm leaving. Don't think about me. Leng Mei snatched Ruo Yin's helicopter and drove it away without further thought. Ruo Yin, who stood where she was, shook her head. She was betting a dime. Leng Mei would definitely be caught and brought back soon. At the same time, Xinjiang town, Longmen City. Lin Mengyu was pointing at Yun Jian as she shouted confidently. Tell me, do you dare to fight me or not? After Lin Mengyu shouted, Yun Jian's and Lin Mengyu's classmates in Xinjiang Town High School stood up to support Lin Mengyu. Mengyu's master has always been living in seclusion on the mountain. A year ago, he personally came down the mountain to take Mengyu as his disciple. It's said that Mengyu's bones are suitable for practicing martial arts and that she's a rare talent that only appears once in 1,000 years. Wow, you made a hermit expert come down from the mountains to recruit a disciple, and he even came looking for you himself. Mengyu, you're amazing. We support you. You're the best. Back in Xinjiang Town High School, there were very few people who helped Yunjian. Other than Lu Fian, there was no one else. Yunjian had always been the one who was isolated because of her good looks. Therefore, when they saw Lin Mengyu bringing everyone to look for Yunjian, the students from Xinjiang Town High School were all on her side. Although Yunjian's strength was astonishing, she did not stay in Xinjiang Town High School for long after her rebirth. What's more, these students didn't know what happened later. Of course, they didn't know Yunjian's other identities. Lin Mengyu felt smug when she heard her former classmates say that she had been taken in as a disciple by a master and that her strength was now astonishing. She raised her head high and made an expression as if she should accept the evaluation of the people around her. Yunjian, surrender obediently if you know what's good for you. Let me send you to the hospital and our grudge will be written off. Otherwise. Just as Lin Mengyu finished, a hurried voice rang from the entrance. Xiao Jian. Right after that, Yunjian saw a few people running in through the entrance. Since it was Saturday and school was over, the students could return to Xinjiang town. Lu Fian was the first to run in. Following behind her were the original basketball team of Xinjiang Town High School, Li Xiangyi, Wu Kuei, Wen Rui, and others. Lu Fian and the basketball team were the first batch of friends that Yunjian made in Xinjiang town. When she left Xinjiang town, Yunjian had promised Lu Fian and the basketball team to meet in Longmen City a year later. A year later, however, Yunjian went to Min City Military Academy while Lu Fian and the basketball team went to Longmen City. Sometimes, even Yunjian herself could not predict what would happen in the future as things changed. When Lu Fian and the basketball team ran in, they stood in front of Yunjian and glared at Lin Mengyu. Lin Mengyu, what do you want? Xiao Jian didn't do anything to you at all. It's always you and Yuan Yingjun harassing her. Now that you're here, how shameless can you be? Lu Fian growled at Lin Mengyu as she stood in front of Yunjian. Chapter 1710. Hey, isn't this LV Fian? Haha. Your dad killed someone. He's still in jail, isn't he? Lin Mengyu saw LV Fian and immediately recalled how LV Fian's father was knocked down by a female teacher in school and accidentally stabbed someone with a pole from a tall building. That incident had caused a huge commotion in Xinjiang Town and Xinjiang Town High School. As Lin Mengyu was the daughter of Xinjiang Town High School's principal, she naturally knew about the incident. LV Fian was Yunjian's friend. Back then, Lin Mengyu had asked her two followers to push Yunjian's head into the toilet pit. It was LV Fian who had complained to the teacher, although the teacher had helped her. Therefore, when Lin Mengyu saw LV Fian running over to protect Yunjian, she did not hesitate to poke at LV Fian's sore spot. LV Fian's father was supposed to be in jail for the rest of his life because of Yunjian's rescue. Now that his sentence had been reduced, he could not avoid jail. That was LV Fian's pain. Therefore, when she heard Lin Mengyu's words, LV Fian clenched her fists tightly. I won't allow you to talk about my dad. If Li Xiangyi had not grabbed LV Fian's arm from behind, LV Fian would have charged forward to fight Lin Mengyu. If it had been in the past, LV Fian would not have been at a disadvantage if she fought with Lin Mengyu. However, Lin Mengyu had trained with the expert for a year now. Naturally, her strength was different from before. Lin Mengyu felt a sense of satisfaction when she saw LV Fian being stopped by someone who was afraid of her strength when she wanted to beat her up. As expected, it was good to have strength. No one could bully her and she could bully anyone she wanted. Lin Mengyu felt that she was invincible when she saw that. Everyone else thought so too. Mengyu, you're amazing. You're amazing. I was shocked when I heard that the expert took you in as his disciple. I'm really impressed. That's right. That Yun Jian is nothing. Humph. She should have surrendered to you long ago. The few female classmates who were originally from Xinjiang Town High School started to praise Lin Mengyu. The tone of their praises almost made Lin Mengyu fly into the sky. The neighbors near Zhang Meihua's house started to gather. There were more and more people. There were those who were watching the show, those who were worried, and those who were gloating. There were all kinds of people. It was just that these people who were watching the show didn't know how to speak. Just when Lin Mengyu was feeling complacent and proud, thinking that she was a legend that everyone was praising, Yun Jian's words suddenly rang out and reached everyone's ears. A rare genius that only appears once every 1,000 years? Just looking at your skeletal structure, a person like you shouldn't be suitable to learn martial arts. To be able to praise you as a rare genius, I really want to meet you. Yun Jian crossed her arms and looked at Lin Mengyu coldly. Lin Mengyu's bones were loose and her attacks were soft. Even if she met an expert, even if she was trained from a young age, she would never reach the level of a senior assassin. For someone like Zhang Xiaofeng, who had strong bones and powerful punches, just a few words of guidance would be enough for him to reach the sky. This was also the reason why Yun Jian accepted Zhang Xiaofeng as her disciple. Lin Mengyu was a rare genius that only appears once every 1,000 years? Yun Jian almost sneered. Why? Are you jealous after hearing that I'm a rare genius that only appears once every 1,000 years? Let me tell you, even if you're jealous, it's useless because I was born with it. Master said that I was born to learn martial arts. Hearing Yun Jian's words, Lin Mengyu thought that Yun Jian was jealous. She laughed and spoke confidently. However, just as Lin Mengyu finished speaking, a woman with voluptuous breasts and buttocks walked in through the main door. This woman was charming and had a voluptuous figure. The moment she entered, she attracted the attention of many men. However, after the woman saw the scene, she laughed loudly and then said to Yun Jian in front of everyone. Chapter 1711. Leng Mei's sudden appearance startled everyone present. At this moment, Leng Mei was wearing a tight-fitting black leather jacket and pants. Her perfect body was fully displayed. Anyone who saw such an enchanting and sexy figure would be attracted to her. Even the women were attracted to her, let alone the men. Seeing Leng Mei enter from the entrance, she did not hesitate to spit out what she had just said. By the time everyone realized that Cold Charm was the woman that Zhang Yang was talking about, everyone was shocked. Those present were ordinary residents of Xinjiang town, farmers, construction sites, or factory workers. They did not even go to Longmen City often and had to be frugal with their spending. Hearing Leng Mei say the word kill so casually, everyone was shocked. What are you doing here? Just as everyone was puzzled and wondering how Yun Jian could possibly know this woman, Yun Jian suddenly looked at Leng Mei with her arms crossed. She obviously knew this woman who spoke of killing so casually. Everyone was shocked. Even Lu Fian, Li Xiangyi, and Lin Mengyu were surprised. Qin Yu and Gu Nianji asked me to hide here for a few days. Don't rat me out. Leng Mei said lazily as she walked to Yun Jian. I didn't hire you to slack off. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. She did not look at Leng Mei, standing where she was with her arms crossed. Now that the Blood Doll organization had been handed over to her, it meant that all the assassins and agents in the organization would be paid a commission. Some of the Kosha mercenaries' own trained assassins and agents had an agreement. When the agreement expired, they would be set free. If these assassins and agents were willing to stay in the Kosha mercenaries, the Kosha mercenaries would hire them at a reasonable price. This was the commission. Leng Mei had been in the organization for so many years and her contract had expired long ago. In other words, Leng Mei would be paid even if she did nothing in the organization. Now that the organization had been handed over to Yun Jian, Leng Mei would still be paid for slacking off and her salary was not low either. I'm just taking a few days off. There's no need to be so calculative. In the past, Lord Chief didn't even care about me. Leng Mei said. In the past, Di Lin really didn't care about Leng Mei. Even if Leng Mei slacked off for a year, Di Lin didn't say anything about her. Don't do it again. Yun Jian pursed her lips. She smiled and said softly. Okay, okay. Leng Mei was relieved. Not bad, not bad. There was a place to hide. The conversation between Yun Jian and Leng Mei was heard by the people around them, but they were confused. What do you mean by, I'll hire you? What leader? What the hell was all this? Everyone present was confused for a moment. Yun Jian, what the hell are you doing? Even if you pretend to be very strong, it's useless. I'm a genius that only appears once in 1,000 years. Master said that even if you practiced martial arts since you were young, you would definitely not be able to beat me. Calling for reinforcements was futile. Hee, what nonsense are you talking about? Don't make me laugh to death. Hearing Leng Mei and Yun Jian's conversation, Lin Mengyu was confused. She laughed coldly, then looked at Yun Jian and sneered. That's right. What nonsense are you talking about? Do you really think you're very strong? I'm dying of laughter. Mengyu, we support you. A female classmate of Yun Jian's from the same class followed behind Lin Mengyu and sneered at Yun Jian. However, just when everyone thought that Yun Jian and Leng Mei's words were pretentious, Leng Mei suddenly smashed the stool in front of her with her palm. She smashed the stool with her bare hands. Then, she pointed at Yun Jian and sneered in front of everyone. Chapter 1712. Just as Leng Mei spoke, a guffaw was heard. Pfft. Ha ha ha. We're not even worth a finger of hers. Are you kidding me? Pfft, don't think you're so great. What a joke. The one who laughed was Lin Mengyu. She was currently glaring at Yun Jian coldly, her gaze brimming with confidence. She was confident that she could defeat Yun Jian. Xiao Jian, this is. The voice of Qin Yiru, who had just returned from grocery shopping, rang from the entrance. Qin Yiru stared blankly at the neighbors who had gathered around to watch the show, as well as Lin Mengyu, Lu Fian, and the others, not knowing what was going on. Ha, you're just in time. You're Yun Jian's mother, aren't you? Your daughter bullied me back then, you don't know, right? She even broke the ribs in my abdomen. I'm going to kill her right in front of you now. Seeing that Qin Yiru had returned, Lin Mengyu did not think that she had gone overboard just now. Instead, she scolded Qin Yiru fiercely. Qin Yiru was shocked by the stare. She was about to speak when Yun Jian's eyes glinted sharply. With a flick of her arm, 6 flying daggers shot out from her hand and went straight to the roof of a nearby house. The scene shocked everyone present. What's wrong with you? Lin Mengyu growled at Yun Jian. However, as soon as the roar fell, a short, old man dressed in martial arts clothes appeared in front of everyone. After the elderly man appeared, 4 to 5 young men appeared beside him. Everyone was surprised. What was going on? Who were these people? As they wondered, Lin Mengyu's eyes widened as she stared at the elderly man and the young men beside him. Master, senior brothers, why are you here? The elderly man was Lin Mengyu's master. When the elderly man appeared, he did not seem to see Lin Mengyu at all. His sharp gaze was trained on Yun Jian and he guffawed after a moment. Ha ha ha. My junior brother has imparted his lifetime's ultimate skill to you. You didn't disappoint me, slaying God. The elderly man guffawed, his gaze on Yun Jian's malevolent gaze remained unchanged under everyone's watchful eyes. The moment he saw the old man and heard the old man's words, Yun Jian suddenly thought of someone. That person was the old man who had taught her a series of ultimate techniques such as hypnotism in her previous life. He could be considered her master. Later on, Yun Jian had also looked for him, but the news she received in the end was that the old man was in the Yulong mainland. Whether or not he was in the Yulong continent was still unknown. Her intuition told her that the junior brother mentioned by the old man who suddenly appeared was the old man who could be considered her master. Master, what are you talking about? She also learned my skills? Lin Mengyu was shocked. She looked at the old man and asked in confusion. Mengyu, it's all thanks to you that I was able to find her, ha ha ha. Your abilities are not worth mentioning, so don't embarrass yourself here. Leave now. The old man glanced at Lin Mengyu from the corner of his eyes and said. Master, what did you say? Lin Mengyu was completely shocked. Master, didn't you say that I'm a once-in-a-lifetime talent? Lin Mengyu did not believe him. That's a lie, heh. The old man glanced at Lin Mengyu and ignored her. He looked at Yun Jian with eyes as sharp as a sword. Slaying God, I've been looking for you for a long time. Finally, I've found you. My junior brother's disciple, haha. He actually has a disciple. Haha. How can I let his disciple continue to live in this world? Ha ha ha. The old man looked at Yun Jian in a crazed manner and sneered. My daughter is not slaying God and has never had a master. You've got the wrong person. When Qin Yiru heard what the old man said, she was so frightened that she hurried over to hold Yun Jian back. It was obvious that these people were not ordinary people. Qin Yiru did not want anything to happen to Yun Jian. The people around them were confused. Wrong person? Ha ha ha, do you really think that she's your daughter, Yun Jian? What a joke. Ha ha ha. What? Slaying God, are you scared today? Are you going to hide it from your own mother? Mother, haven't you noticed that your daughter's temperament has changed drastically since last year? Her ability has improved by leaps and bounds. Don't tell me you don't suspect it. The old man looked at Qin Yiru and said confidently. His words stumped Qin Yiru. Xiao Jian's temperament had changed drastically since last year and she had suddenly become so powerful. It was not that Qin Yiru did not suspect it. Qin Yiru looked at Yun Jian and hesitated for a while before saying, Xiao Jian, I believe you, do you want to know? Just as Qin Yiru finished, Yun Jian cut her off. What? Qin Yiru was stunned. Do you want to know the truth? If Qin Yiru wanted to know the truth one day, she would not hide it from her. Yun Jian had expected this day to come sooner or later. Qin Yiru was stunned. Yun Jian's red lips curled up in front of everyone. She stood in front of Qin Yiru and spoke to Qin Yiru in front of Lin Mengyu, Lu Fian, Li Xiangyi, the neighbors, including Qin Fangfang and Zhang Meihua who came out later. Chapter 17-13. Yun Jian uttered those words slowly and coldly in front of everyone. Everyone's expression darkened as they listened to Yun Jian's unhurried words. Silence, a deathly silence. It was dead silent. No one dared to make a sound at that moment. Yun Jian uttered those words in front of so many people, including her biological mother. Qin Yiru. If she was lying, where did she come up with such a lie? And at this very moment, even Lin Mengyu's master pointed out that she was slaying God? The crowd was confused, especially when Yun Jian uttered the last sentence, I'm number 1 on the international secret agent ranking, number 006, slaying God. It did not matter if it was Qin Yiru who stood nearby, Lu Fian, Li Xiangyi, Zhang Meihua, Qin Fangfang's family, Lin Mengyu and her neighbors who were completely stunned. An image flashed across everyone's eyes. In that image, Yun Jian stood in the middle with a butterfly knife dripping with blood in her hand. Corpses were strewn all around her. She was wounded all over, but she stood among the corpses as if nothing had happened to her. She was like a murderous king. She was the number 1 on the international secret agent ranking, number 006, slaying God. She was a top-notch existence that no one had ever imagined. This is impossible, this can't be. No wonder you've changed. I was wondering why you suddenly became so strong when you were in the toilet a year ago. So you are. Lin Mengyu initially refuted. How could Yun Jian be the number 1 on the international secret agent ranking, slaying God? However, she suddenly realized something. A year ago, Yun Jian was still a slug who was so weak that she could be dragged into the toilet to be bullied. However, she had suddenly changed. It was then that she had suddenly changed. She had learned how to fight back. Her abilities had become terrifying. It was hard to fathom. At that time, Lin Mingyu was puzzled. Why did Yun Jian seem to have become another person? When Yun Jian admitted her identity earlier, Lin Mingyu thought it was impossible. The number 1 on the international secret agent ranking, slaying God. What kind of existence was that? Although they had never heard of Yun Jian's battle achievements, the first time they heard of this title, they felt that it was inconceivable. Therefore, Lin Mingyu felt that it was impossible. Slaying God, the top international secret agent ranking, how could she be Yun Jian? But in the end, even Lin Mingyu herself could not explain why Yun Jian had suddenly become so powerful. It was as if he was a completely different person. Therefore, Lin Mingyu changed her words. Everyone stared at the scene in front of them. At this moment, no one dared to say a word. Yun Jian stared intently at Qin Yiru. She saw that Qin Yiru's expression had changed from disbelief to shock. Qin Yiru had yet to put down her raised hands. She just stared at Yun Jian in a daze, unable to say a word. Yun Jian pursed her red lips and suddenly smiled. Since he had decided to talk about it, he might as well go all out. Mom, I'm sorry for keeping this a secret from you for so long. I'm also sorry that I'm not your biological daughter. I'm a secret agent trained by the Inhun organization. Serial number 006, code name Slaying God. I was once locked up with hundreds of children in the dark organization, but in the end, they all died in my hands. Because if they didn't die, I would have been the one who died. I had no choice. I'm not the daughter you're familiar with, and I'm not the child you brought up. I'm just an orphan. I've killed countless people and my hands are stained with blood. Killing, war, heavy weapons, machinery, and computer operations, I'm proficient in everything except family. You're the one who gave me an ordinary life and made me feel a mother's love. I yearn for that kind of mediocre but caring life. At this point, Yun Jian paused for 2 seconds. She pursed her red lips and looked at Qin Yiru with her mouth slightly agape. Her tone was a little slow, as if she could not bring herself to ask but had to say it. This was the first time in her life that she was at a loss because of someone. So, can you still accept me like this? Chapter 17-14. The crowd was watching the scene unfold before them. At that moment, everyone's eyes were fixed on Yun Jian and Qin Yiru. Shock was unavoidable. What did Yun Jian say earlier? She said that her hands were stained with blood, that she had killed countless people, that she had been imprisoned with hundreds of children, and that she had killed them all. Killing, war, heavy weapons, machinery, and computer operations, she was proficient in all of them. She was a mythical existence. Even the National College entrance examination top scholar whom the villagers looked up to might not be able to reach such a standard if placed on the same level as her, right? You really know so many things. Oh my God. You're a genius. Look at us, we've been studying for our whole lives but we don't even know what a computer is. A talkative old woman opened her mouth and looked at Yun Jian in shock and fear. Old women from the villages usually exaggerated their words, and this old woman was no exception. Granny, she's a secret agent. She'll kill people. Someone tugged at the old woman's sleeve and stepped back immediately. The moment the people around them heard that Yun Jian was a secret agent, they all took 2 steps back in fear. However, they were afraid that Yun Jian would be ruthless when they tried to leave, so at that moment, no one dared to leave. The neighbors looked at Yun Jian and stepped back in fear. Lin Mengyu and Yun Jian's classmates took a few steps back as well. Everyone looked at Yun Jian as if they had seen the god of plague. Yiru, your daughter has been possessed by this demon called Slaying God or something, right? Oh my. There's actually such a terrifying thing in this world. This demoness can kill people. Everyone, stay away. Yiru, you should stay away too. Don't get killed. Ask her to leave quickly. Or ask the police to arrest her and shoot her. The old woman who spoke earlier reacted and immediately jeered. Soon, someone else chimed in, that's right, that's right. I was wondering how your daughter became so powerful. She started a company and is a special force soldier. What's she so proud of? She's been possessed by a demon. In my opinion, she should die. Yiru, if you want to accept her, then get out of Xinjiang town. Don't ever come back. The people around began to point at Yun Jian and scold Qin Yiru as well. They might not have realized what the name, slaying god, meant. Yun Jian was not affected in the slightest by the people around her. At this moment, Yun Jian was sizing up Qin Yiru. She was waiting for Qin Yiru's reply. Not far away, Qin Yiru was speechless after hearing what Yun Jian had said. Qin Yiru opened her mouth several times, wanting to say something, but her lips were trembling so badly that she couldn't say anything in the end. She suddenly realized that her biological daughter was no longer her biological daughter. It was not that she had no feelings for Yun Jian in the past year. Qin Yiru was a sentimental person. Moreover, Qin Yiru's adoption of Xiao Yunju, Duanli, and Duanya showed that she was not a selfish person. However, this had happened out of the blue. How was she supposed to accept or admit this fact? Humph. Ignorant fools. How dare you call slaying God a demon? Pfft. I'm dying of laughter. Do you know what the name, slaying God, means? Slaying God, the number 1 on the international secret agent ranking. She started killing at 12 and killed the previous boss of Kosha mercenaries at 14. The missions she took on cost at least $100 million in the market. Her assassination, cover, tracking, and anti-tracking missions have never failed since she started her career. Her missions ranged from assassinating the president of a large country to hunting down commoners. And Hun's slaying god is fluent in 58 languages. She was once on the headlines of international newspapers and was listed as the most untouchable existence in the world. Someone said that those who are targeted by slaying God already have one foot in the coffin. Countless countries have offered her tens of billions of USD to work for them, but she rejected them all. How dare you call someone like her a demon? A demon. Leng Mei suddenly spoke up when the group of old women were openly attacking Yun Jian and telling Yun Jian to get lost. Her cold words were like a sharp sword, shocking the people who had no idea what slaying God meant. Slaying God. Chapter 17:15. Every word that Leng Mei said brought a sense of shock to everyone present, as if they had discovered a new world. The market price for Yun Jian's missions was no less than $100 million USD. What kind of shocking figure was that? Countless countries had offered her tens of billions of USD to work for their country, but she had rejected them all. From those few words, everyone present was shocked by one thing. That thing was, just how rich was Yun Jian? In addition to Yun Jian's frightening achievements, Leng Mei actually said that she was proficient in 58 languages. Was this really a person's ability? This was not something that could be described with the word genius. This was a terrifying existence that could not be proven by science. Everyone present, especially those old women who had said that Yun Jian was a demon, a ghost, or possessed by a fairy, were dumbfounded. No one had expected Yun Jian to be such a terrifying existence. These old women who lived in Xinjiang town and rarely left Xinjiang town could not imagine how terrifying a person's ability was at its peak. Yun Jian was an existence that frogs at the bottom of a well like them would never be able to touch. Tens of billions of USD. The few old women who had said bad things about Yun Jian hugged each other, their legs trembling in fear. Even if it was millions, it would be astronomical data to these old women, much less tens of billions. Tens of billions of USD. In the eyes of these old women, it was an indescribable number. The zeros behind it were uncountable. Therefore, the few old women who had asked Qin Yiru to chase Yun Jian away or asked Qin Yiru to get out of Xinjiang town hugged each other, their legs trembling in fear. Yun Jian did not care about the reactions of the people around her. She only stared at Qin Yiru. Qin Yiru lowered her head slightly, her hands clenched tightly together, her expression terrible. Yun Jian believed that she could see through everyone's motives, but she couldn't understand Qin Yiru at the moment. Qin Yiru was not like other people. If it were other people, after hearing Lang Mei talk about Yun Jian's achievements, they would naturally think that Yun Jian was very rich. The villagers lived a hard life. Even if they had a few 100,000 in savings, they could be considered one of the wealthiest families in Xinjiang town. In 1999, there were not many tycoons in this era. This was because in the past, the people of Z country worked together and shared their food equally. They were not allowed to start their own businesses. Later on, there was a policy of going it alone. That was, the citizens could start their own businesses and invest in companies. Of course, there were also some people who knew their place and lived a mediocre life. Therefore, as time went on, the gap between the rich and poor of the Z nation's farmers grew wider and wider. In 1999, the gap between the rich and the poor had become obvious. Those who were powerful would become rich, while those who were not powerful would stay in their families' 3 villages and 2 acres of land, living a mediocre life. What Yun Jian had was something that the farmers of Xinjiang town could only hear about for the rest of their lives. They would never be able to touch it. Therefore, if Qin Yiru was a normal woman, she would have accepted Yun Jian a long time ago. It did not matter if she was the #1 secret agent in the world, slaying God. Even if she did not accept her, her daughter would still not come back. Under such circumstances, was it not better for her to accept it as soon as possible? She could even cheat Yun Jian of a huge sum of money. After hearing Lang Mei's words, the people around them were envious of Qin Yiru. However, Yun Jian knew that Qin Yiru was not that kind of person. Seeing Qin Yiru lowering her head and clenching her fists, Yun Jian's heart chilled slightly. She curled her lips, but there was no emotion in it. Yun Jian's heart chilled. She should have known that she did not belong to the mundane world because no one in the mundane world could accept her. Just like, in her past life, she had nowhere to go after leaving an Han group. No one was willing to accept her, whose hands were stained with blood. Therefore, she had no choice but to return to that bloody world. For the past year, she had lived a normal life for so long. She thought that she could continue on like that. However, now, Mom, please allow me to address you as Mom again. I'm sorry, I know you're dying to know where your daughter is. If I have any clues in the future, I'll let you know immediately. Thank you for taking care of me for the past year. Yun Jian bowed at Qin Yiru calmly. Her heart was bleeding. However, as soon as she said that, Qin Yiru could no longer hold it in. She rushed over and hugged Yun Jian with trembling hands, just like how Qin Yiru hugged her a year ago when Yun Jian hugged her and told her, "Mom, you still have us." Chapter 17-16. Those who came out from the world of assassins and secret agents had no other choice but to die in battle. No one from the secular world would accept them because their hands were stained with blood. For an ordinary family, if they heard that someone had killed someone, their first reaction would definitely be to warn their family members to stay away from this person and not to get close to this murderer. Who knew when they would be killed by the murderer? This was a very realistic world. Although Yun Jian was ranked #1 on the international secret agent ranking, and as slaying God, she was so powerful that she was omniscient and omnipotent. However, as a person in this world, she had no other choice and there was no turning back. Assassins and secret agents from the underground organizations could only die in battle and could never return to the ordinary world. That was because the people in the ordinary world would never allow an assassin or secret agent who had killed many to live near them and threaten their safety. If not for her rebirth, Yun Jian knew very well that someone of her status would never be able to come into contact with the ordinary world. There was only one outcome for her: death in battle. If she did not want to die in battle, she had to become stronger. She had to be so strong that no one could kill her. That was why Yun Jian had never stopped pursuing power in her previous life. Even after her rebirth, she had never stopped expanding her influence. She knew very well that there were many capable people in this world. She was powerful, but it did not mean that there was no one more powerful than her. What she wanted to do was to trample on those more powerful than her. That was survival. Yin Jian was fully prepared. She knew that Qin Yiru would find out that she was not her biological daughter one day. She was also prepared that Qin Yiru would not accept her. However, Yin Jian did not expect Qin Yiru to rush over and hug her at the last moment and say such words to her. Who in this world was not afraid of people who could kill? If it were someone else, they might acknowledge Yin Jian, but it was for the money. However, Qin Yiru did not covet a single cent from her. Yin Jian could feel the kinship she gave her. She reached out her right hand and placed it gently on her heart. Yin Jian took a deep breath. She could feel it. There was a slight warmth. This was the taste of kinship. Why are you crying? Don't cry. Qin Yiru hugged Yin Jian. After a while, she could feel a few drops of tears dripping down her shoulder. Those teardrops belonged to Yin Jian. Qin Yiru quickly turned to look at Yin Jian. She reached out and touched the tears on Yin Jian's face. Mom is here. Mom will never leave you. This is fate. It's not your fault. Qin Yiru rubbed away the tears on Yin Jian's face. She was also tearing up. Qin Yiru really wanted to ask where her daughter had gone, but at this moment, she could not bring herself to ask. Moreover, Yin Jian had also said that she would inform him as soon as she had news of her biological daughter. Crying? Was she crying? Yin Jian was stunned for a moment. From the moment her tears fell until now, she had not made a sound. Tears flowed down her cheeks silently. She did not even realize it. Tears? Yin Jian caught the tears that fell from her eyes. She was in a trance for a moment. How many years had it been since she last cried? Ever since she came to terms with the truth, she had never shed a tear even when she was living a life where she could be killed at any time in the Inhun organization. Even when she was covered in wounds. Things like tears would never appear on her body. However, today she actually shed tears. He. Slaying God, are you done catching up? Ha ha ha. It's time to settle our personal grudges. Chapter 17:17. As soon as the elderly man finished speaking, the atmosphere turned gloomy. The crowd was stunned by the shocking scene, unable to snap out of their daze for a moment. The elderly man's untimely remark made the crowd realize that Yin Jian and Qin Yiru were not the only ones present. Lin Mengyu's unpredictable master was also present. Moreover, this elderly man was the culprit who exposed Yin Jian's identity. Lin Mengyu noticed that her master was still standing beside Yin Jian, especially when her master had confidently pointed out Yin Jian's identity in front of her. Lin Mengyu suddenly had a mysterious confidence. She felt that her master's ability was definitely above Yin Jian's. Just because her master had pointed out Yin Jian's identity. Therefore, even if Yin Jian was slaying God, Lin Mengyu was not afraid. Because she had a master. Lin Mengyu looked at Yin Jian, snickered, and said, "That's right, Yin Jian. Are you done catching up? Do you think you're all that just because you're slaying God? Do you think you can defeat my master? Moreover. So what if you're crying? Don't make it sound like you've never cried in your life. Do you really think you're someone high and mighty? Even if you're powerful, there's still my master. My master's ability isn't necessarily worse than yours." Just as Lin Mengyu finished her smug remark, the elderly man suddenly shouted at her, "Lin Mengyu, shut up. Do you want to die? She's slaying God." From what he said, it was obvious that the elderly man was still very afraid of Yin Jian. Yin Jian had already recovered from her earlier emotions. She turned her head sideways and shielded Qin Yiru behind her. Qin Yiru did not put on a brave front this time. She stood behind Yin Jian consciously and did not burden Yin Jian. Yin Jian's slightly red and swollen eyes instantly turned sharp. She glanced sideways and her sharp gaze landed on Lin Mengyu. Her tenderness towards Qin Yiru did not mean that Yun Jian would look at other people with red eyes. Her self-control was still outstanding. Scanning Lin Mengyu with a sharp gaze, Yun Jian's lips quirked up. Perhaps it was Qin Yiru's action just now that the burden in her heart had been lifted. Yun Jian could not be more relaxed right now. Since you already know my identity, I might as well tell you that those who dared to insult me in the past, I will. Since this group of people knew her identity, then she, Yun Jian, would not be merciful. Just as Yun Jian said this, Lin Mengyu suddenly trembled. She suddenly recalled that Yun Jian had spoken to her in the same tone a year ago. What will happen? Lin Mengyu hid beside the old man but trembled under Yun Jian's sharp gaze. She forced herself to calm down but could not calm her emotions. Just as everyone gulped, Yun Jian, who was standing on the other side, spoke abruptly and said something that sent chills down the spines of the crowd. Kill without mercy. Perhaps it was because they were certain of Yun Jian's identity and what Yun Jian had said earlier. If it were in the past, everyone present would have treated Yun Jian's words as a joke. However, at this moment, they could not help but tremble when they heard Yun Jian's words. She wanted to kill the other party just because of what she said. Was this the so-called slaying god? He. Slaying god, your opponent is me. The old man suddenly stood out and stared straight at Yun Jian. He spoke arrogantly as if he would not stop until he killed Yun Jian. Just as the old man finished speaking, a tall figure walked in from the main entrance. The tall figure scanned the entire place coldly and was enraged when he saw Yun Jian's red and swollen eyes. Chapter 17-18. Siyi's sudden appearance had everyone rooted to the spot in shock. Especially Qin Yiru. Yun Jian wasn't surprised that Ce had returned to an Han organization in the morning, so why was he back now? Qin Yiru and Yun Jian had personally watched Ce drive away in the morning, so she couldn't help but be a little surprised to see Ce back. Ce had indeed left in the morning, and the private helicopter that Imo-san had sent to pick him up was already on its way to an Han organization. Later, there was suddenly news that someone was looking for trouble with Yun Jian, so Ce turned back without a second thought. Looking at Ce entering through the main entrance, and the arrogant words he had said when he entered, everyone looked at him. Obviously, they were shocked by Ce's words. Ce's words had shocked them. Ce's tall and slender figure was getting closer and closer to Yun Jian. The moment he saw Ce, the old man's eyes twitched fiercely. Ce walked quickly to Yun Jian and hugged Yun Jian in front of everyone present. Seeing Yun Jian's red eyes, his expression flashed fiercely, and even his eyebrows twitched. At the main entrance, after Ce entered, two handsome figures immediately followed him in. One of the figures had a deep scar on his neck, and just looking at it was enough to make people tremble in fear. The other handsome figure was much calmer. Naturally, it was Shuaiying and Imo Senator. After Shuaiying and Imo-san entered, a large group of people rushed in through the main entrance. These people were all dressed in black, and their entire bodies were covered tightly, only revealing a pair of dark eyes. The group of people who entered followed behind Shuaiying and Imo-san, and each of them carried a machine gun. Just looking at their formation was enough to shock everyone present. There was no doubt that these people were the top assassins of an Han organization, each of them experienced in battle. Even Lin Mengyu's master, the old man, shuddered at the sight. Not to mention the reactions of the people around them. Ce had already pulled Yun Jian into his arms. He had already pulled Yun Jian into his embrace and stretched out his slender hand to caress the area around Yun Jian's red eyes. Xiao Jian, who bullied you? Tell me, I'll send them to hell. Ce spat coldly. As he spoke, his arm was wrapped around Yun Jian's waist, his sharp gaze as if he would annihilate everyone present for her with a single word from Yun Jian. Who bullied her? Was it not Qin Yiru who moved Yun Jian to tears just now? No one dared to make a sound. Yun Jian was slaying God, the top international secret agent ranking. How ordinary could Ce be when he could be with Yun Jian? The neighbors had all seen Ce before. Qin Yiru usually treated Ce as his son-in-law, so they could recognize CE. In spite of it, the current CE struck fear into everyone's hearts. I'm fine. Yunjian nestled in CE's arms, feeling her heart calm down completely. The person who made her cry was her mother. If they were to settle the score, was CE supposed to take it out on Qin Yiru? Are you really okay? CE took a few glances at Yunjian. He rubbed Yunjian's head and paused before looking up abruptly. His gaze that was so gentle that it made everyone present think that he would do anything for Yunjian was as sharp as a reaper's. After a 2-second pause, CE's words made everyone's expression change. CE ordered Snow Eagle and Emosen to carry out his orders in front of everyone. Chapter 17-19. 10 seconds was the slowest time he had given them. CE was furious. CE looked different from others when he was enraged. Yunjian could tell from his furrowed brows. CE's brows were furrowed, the veins around his brows twitching. It was the first time his handsome face had such an expression. How dare they make his woman cry? All of them would go to hell. AE, hold on. This is because Qin Yiru looked at the group of people CE had brought into the house. Each of them was holding a machine gun. She did not think that CE was joking, so she quickly stopped him. It was useless for Qin Yiru to say anything now. CE's heart was broken when he saw Yunjian's reddened eyes just now. In his 20 years of life, he had always been indifferent, giving off the feeling that the earth was about to explode and the sky was about to collapse. There would be no other expression on his face. At this moment, however, his expression changed again and again. His Xiao Jian was crying. The Xiao Jian whom even he could not bear to bully, who was like the apple of his eye, who was afraid of dropping and melting in his mouth, was actually crying from being bullied. CE was truly enraged now. Shuang and Emosen were more or less wary of Qin Yiru's intervention. Qin Yiru was Yunjian's biological mother after all. Based on CE's usual doting attitude toward Yunjian, Qin Yiru's intervention was Qin Yiru's taboo. Hence, they did not attack right away. 5 more seconds. If everyone here isn't dead, you'll be the ones to die. CE's hawk-like gaze was reflected on Shuang and Emo's senator starting from just now. He had 10 seconds to finish off everyone here. If Shuang and Emosen could not do it within Hun's men, the ones who would die would be Shuang and Emosen. CE's words surprised Shuang and Emo's senator. The young master hadn't been this angry for many years. Strictly speaking, the last time he was so angry was when the young master was still the Lord Divine Lord. At that time, CE was furious because the sorcerer goddess did not attend the ceremony. Coincidentally, the king of the Yulong continent said that the sorcerer goddess would not attend the ceremony. CE was so furious that he tore the ruler of the Yulong continent, the king, into pieces. After the matter at that time came out, Lord Divine Lord's ruthlessness was thoroughly spread out. This time, Shuang and Emosen felt CE's anger once again. With a wave of their hand, they were about to launch a barrage of bullets at the scene. Yunjian's words came out in time. It's not them, it's him. Yunjian pointed at the old man. The surrounding people were indeed innocent. Today, when Yunjian revealed her identity, she had already thought of a countermeasure. Qin Yiru still had to survive here. It would be enough to make these people lose all their memories of what they saw today. However, if people died here, it would not be the same thing. Yunjian never liked to do complicated things. The deaths of the people present would not benefit her at all. At this moment, Yunjian had figured out the ins and outs of this old man. Her master in her previous life was most likely from the Yulong continent. This old man was her master's senior brother. In addition to this old man's various actions, it was not difficult to guess that this old man had nothing to do with the Yulong continent. If she guessed correctly, this old man was just a senior brother that her master met on Earth when he was apprenticed to a master. Therefore, this old man had nothing to do with the Yulong continent. Of course, if the old man knew that she and her master were from the Yulong continent, and that she was the sorcerer goddess of the Yulong continent, the old man would not dare to cause trouble here even if he had 10 times the courage. As the sorcerer goddess, Yun Jian could tell if this old man had any spiritual energy waves. The answer was no. Therefore, she could basically guess the relationship between the old man and her master. As for her identity as the sorcerer goddess, Yun Jian did not plan to tell Qin Yiru at the moment. Yun Jian was now powerful enough to protect Qin Yiru due to the danger brought by the identity of slaying God. However, she had no idea how much danger the identity of the sorcerer goddess would bring to Qin Yiru. The continuous appearance of the mysterious man and the black-robed man, and the reason why she died in her previous life, she still needed to slowly explore all of these. Therefore, she would not reveal this identity unless it was absolutely necessary. Yun Jian's words were more effective than Si Yi's. Shuang and Emosen did not hesitate at all. They ordered the group of Hun assassins behind them to put down their machine guns immediately. Tisk, TSK, TSK. Have fun on your own. I'm leaving now. Slaying God, we'll meet again next time. Slaying God, I'll definitely kill you next time. The old man glared viciously at Yun Jian. As soon as he finished speaking, he jumped up, intending to escape from the eaves under everyone's watchful eyes. Needless to say, Si Yi's appearance had terrified the old man. Therefore, the old man fled. Everyone present watched the scene in shock. However, before the old man could jump out of the eaves, they saw the tall figure with Yun Jian in his arms flash. In the next second, Si Yi was one step ahead of the old man in the air. He stood in the air and with a kick from his slender thigh, he sent the old man crashing to the ground from midair. Si Yi landed on the ground. He looked askance at the old man and said coldly, "You want to leave after bullying my woman? Leave your head behind." Chapter 17:20. The blade flashed, and the blade reflected a dazzling light under the blazing sun overhead. The light flashed in front of everyone's eyes. They did not even see when Si Yi struck. All they saw was the flash of light. Before the old man on the ground could react, his head had been split in half. His head and body were split in half. The old man's eyes were still wide open. His head and body had been split in half. He died with his eyes wide open. As the old man died, his eyes were still wide open, unwilling to close. He's dead. He's dead. He's dead. Ah! The group of old women around them reacted the quickest and screamed the loudest. Those who did not know better would have thought that they were the ones who died. Si Yi had finished off the old man in one move. That speed was so fast that no one knew when he had struck with his saber. Die die die, master is dead. Lin Mengyu's pupils suddenly shrank. She was so frightened that her expression changed. It was as if she had heard something horrifying. Her lips turned white and she stood rooted to the ground, trembling. Lin Mengyu's senior brothers were all dumbfounded. They did not see wrongly. When the old man saw Si Yi and said those words, he did not even care about their lives and escaped alone. If the old man had managed to escape by himself, then the few senior brothers of Lin Mengyu who were with him would have died without a doubt. But the old man failed to escape. But it was undeniable that the old man did not care about his own disciples at all just to save his own life. In addition, his master, who was extremely arrogant just a second ago, had his head chopped off at this moment. Therefore, Lin Mengyu's senior brothers could not react to the old man's selfishness and escape without caring about their lives. Now, the old man was beheaded and died on the spot. Compared to Lin Mengyu's senior brothers, Lu Fian, Li Xiangyi, and the rest were in a daze from the beginning. This is... What the hell is going on? Lu Fian, Li Xiangyi, and the rest were so shocked by the scene before them that they could not react. As for Zhang Meihua, Qin Fangfang, and the rest, they were completely dumbfounded. Si Yi had personally killed him. Shuang and Emosen both swallowed hard. How long had it been since their young master had personally taken action? Normally, Ce wouldn't make a move, as these trash were so weak that he didn't even need to do anything. But just now, their young master made a move again. Shuang and Emosen swallowed and sighed at Yunjian's charm. It seemed that young madam's charm was too great. Just now, when Yunjian asked Ce to go east, she didn't dare to go west. When she asked Ce to stop, she didn't even dare to let out a fart. Shuang felt that he needed to have a good chat with Adam. Next time, they shouldn't work so hard to curry favor with Yunjian. This was equivalent to currying favor with their young master. If Ce heard of Shui Ying's plan, she would probably send him flying with a slap. Mom. Younger sister. What happened? Just then, a few silhouettes walked in from the main entrance. Upon closer inspection, it was Yun-Yi, Qingyu, and Gu Nianji. Yun-Yi and Qingyu entered the courtyard side by side while Gu Nianji followed them in alone. Yun-Yi frowned when he saw the scene around him, but he was not too shocked. He already knew his younger sister Yunjian's identity. In addition, he had been training with Zhang Xiaofeng and Yunjian these days. Although he was unfamiliar with such a scene, he was not shocked. As soon as Qingyu walked in, she gloated at Leng Mei's misfortune in front of everyone. Chapter 1721. What? My leader is here? Are you kidding me? I just snuck out, okay? How did he find me so quickly? Oh my God. I don't want to go back. Help me find a place to hide. Hearing Qingyu's words, Leng Mei, who had been standing where she was with her arms crossed in front of her as if she was watching a show, darkened her expression. In the next second, Leng Mei's face was as swollen as charcoal. She jumped up and looked left and right. There was nowhere to hide. There's a pigsty over there. Leng Mei, go hide for a while. It's useless to hide in the house. A pigsty is the best. Even if your leader is here, he won't enter the pigsty to look for you. Gu Nianji gave Leng Mei a kind suggestion. Yes, yes, yes. Hide in the pigsty. What? You want me to hide in the pigsty? She was Leng Mei, the blood doll's top expert. Gu Nianji was asking for a beating. She wanted her to hide in the pigsty. Leng Mei's expression darkened immediately. Do you want to be caught? Gu Nianji instigated again. People in the countryside usually had a pigsty because the elderly in the countryside would usually stay at home to farm. Since there were many vegetables at home, people in the countryside would usually raise 1 or 2 or 3 piglets at home. The extra vegetables would be eaten by the pigs so that it would not go to waste. This was considered a custom in the countryside because raising 1 or 2 piglets at home and slaughtering them for New Year's was a special way to celebrate the New Year. Of course, people in the past did not raise piglets for New Year's. They were so poor that they could not even afford to eat. There were many people who died of starvation in the old days. Even if the pigs were slaughtered at home for New Year's, they were not for their family but to be sold. Pork could be sold for a lot of money. Zhang Meihua's pigsty had 3 pigs and they were already the size of adult pigs. Leng Mei was the blood doll's top expert, which meant that her ability must be extraordinary. In addition to Leng Mei's usual attire, she was quite presentable. Asking her to hide in the pigsty? This was driving her crazy. The last time she was caught, she was pinned to the bed by their leader for 3 days and 3 nights. This time, she had escaped with great difficulty. Their Lord Chief could be deceived by her once, but he couldn't be deceived by her a second time. She would not be able to escape this time. Leng Mei clenched her teeth and went all out. Hide. I'll hide. With that, Leng Mei jumped into the pigsty, towards Leng Mei, this foreign creature. The pigs in the pigsty all howled a few times. After a while, it was unknown what Leng Mei did, but the pigs stopped howling. Ahem. Even Yunjian couldn't help but twitch her mouth when she saw this scene. At this moment, Ce walked over and pulled her into his embrace. Gu Nianji and Leng Mei's actions amused everyone present. however, other than Yun Yi, Qin Yu, and a few others, the people around them dared not move an inch from the old man's corpse. "Let us go. We promise we won't go out and say anything, Yiru." "Ah, Yiru. Tell your daughter to let us go." "We promise that we won't tell anyone." "I promise I won't say anything. I'm begging you. Let us go." The group of old women knelt before Qin Yiru and begged for mercy from the scene before them. "Do you still want to live in this world after knowing my identity?" Yun Jian raised her brows and asked softly. Necessary intimidation was necessary. Yun Jian's words caused another round of panic. "As long as you don't kill us, we'll do anything you want us to." "Anything." The people around them knelt on the ground in fear, some even kowtowed to Yun Jian. Yun Jian's eyes shone. She then signaled Qin Yu with a look so that everyone present, other than Qin Yiru, Yun Yi, and those who should not have their memories erased, had to drink the 3-hour amnesia liquid. This was Yun Jian's ultimate goal. Even Lu Fian, Li Xiangyi, and the rest were not spared. The corpses and blood on the ground were quickly cleaned up by Anhun's people. Everything returned to how it was before. Chapter 1722. Everyone fainted after drinking the amnesia liquid for 3 hours. They would not remember what had just happened when they woke up. Of course, it would take some time for them to wake up after drinking the amnesia liquid for 3 hours. Lu Fian, Li Xiangyi, Lin Mengyu, and everyone else present had no idea what the amnesia liquid was. However, due to what Yun Jian had said earlier, they would die if they did not drink the liquid. Therefore, everyone drank it obediently. What a joke. After knowing that Yun Jian was slaying God, they did not even dare to refute Yun Jian. Judging from the series of actions earlier, Yun Jian's ability to kill was no joke. Therefore, the group drank the amnesia liquid obediently. Of course, Lu Fian, Li Xiangyi, and the rest drank the liquid as well. Although they had no idea what it was, they believed that Yun Jian would not harm them. Currently, the group was unconscious on the ground and would only wake up after a while. Fortunately, the amnesia liquid that Qin Yu had specially developed did not have any side effects and could be used multiple times on the same person. Di Lin's sudden appearance gave Qin Yiru another shock. However, Qin Yiru had enough scares today. 1 or 2 more would not make a difference. Di Lin, who appeared at the entrance of the courtyard, looked around and asked Yun Jian, "Has Leng Mei been here before?" Di Lin asked Yun Jian because he thought that Yun Jian would not lie to him. Yun Jian's red lips curved slightly. Just as she was about to betray Leng Mei, she heard Leng Mei's warning imitating a pig's cry from the pigsty next door. "Ow ow, humph, humph." The impersonation was quite accurate. If Leng Mei had not jumped into the pigsty earlier, Yun Jian would not have been able to tell whether the cry was a real pig's cry or Leng Mei's voice. The pig's cry was too prominent, similar to Leng Mei's cries in bed. Di Lin turned to look at the pigsty. "She hasn't been here." Yun Jian leaned her back gently against Si Yi's chest. She pursed her lips and lied without batting an eyelid. Yun Jian suspected that she had been possessed by Si Yi. I'm getting better at lying." At this moment, Di Lin was already walking towards the pigsty. "Damn these lazy pigs. I just fed you pig food this morning, and now you're squawking, 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 squawking. What the hell are you screaming for? Here's the pig feed." At that moment, Gu Nianji, who was standing not too far away from the pigsty, had an idea. She grabbed the pig food next to the pigsty and poured it all into the pigsty. Wheeze. Wheeze. The pigs in the pigsty all let out satisfied noises and began to scramble for the pig food. Seeing this, Di Lin went into the room to check. He didn't see Leng Mei. He left behind a relatively handsome back view and left. After making sure that Di Lin had left, Gu Nianji dragged Leng Mei out of the pigsty. Reality proved that Leng Mei had chased Gu Nianji around Xinjiang town for dozens of rounds. Inside the room, Yun Yi, Qin Yu, Yun Jian, Qin Yiru, and Ce sat together at the table. Knowing that Qin Yiru already knew the truth, Yunyi opened her mouth, but it was Qin Yiru who asked first. Xiao Yi, you've known about this for a long time, haven't you? Qin Yiru asked Yunyi if she knew that Yun Jian was no longer the Yun Jian of the past. Brother found out not too long ago, Yun Jian suddenly said, then leaned on Ci's shoulder and told Yunyi and Qin Yiru. Chapter 1723. Yun Jian told Qin Yiru and Yunyi everything about her. Other than what happened in Yulong mainland and some things that could not be said, she had told them everything she could. After listening to what Yun Jian said, Qin Yiru completely believed that the woman in front of her was not her biological daughter. Qin Yiru was upset, but there was nothing she could do. I don't know where the real Yun Jian went, but I promise that I'll do my best to find her. Yun Jian's determined gaze tugged at Qin Yiru's heartstrings. No. This is her fate. All of this is fate. Child, you're my child. This isn't your fault. You shouldn't go through this. Qin Yiru was worried that Yun Jian would get into trouble while searching for her daughter. Hence, Qin Yiru grabbed Yun Jian. How could Qin Yiru not want to find her biological daughter? She should not and would never force Yun Jian to help her search. Yun Jian was a child who had a hard life. She had lived in a place like that in her past life and suffered so much. Your mom's Xiao Jian from now on. Mom will love you forever. Qin Yiru told Yun Jian as she tugged at her hand. You have to be good to my younger sister or I won't let you go as her brother. Yunyi gestured at Ce. Qin Yiru and Yunyi were indirectly acknowledging Yun Jian. They were a family. Mom, brother, thank you. Yun Jian's heart warmed. She felt like she had someone to rely on right now. This was the reliance that came from family. I'll protect her with my life. Ce grabbed Yun Jian's soft hand and told Yunyi and Qin Yiru solemnly. Yunyi and Qin Yiru were comforted by the gesture. Yun Jian breathed a sigh of relief after what happened in Xinjiang town. It was also a relief for Yun Jian when Qin Yiru learned the truth. Other than Qin Yiru who knew the truth, everyone else had forgotten what happened that day. Of course, that was except for those who already knew. Ce and Shuang returned to an Han group. Before they left, Ce had left her most capable assistant, Mo Sen, to work under Yun Jian. This Saturday, after visiting Chen Sini at Longmen City People's Hospital, Yun Jian was invited by Su Mei to visit Luo Berry's house. Su Mei and Luo Berry were acquainted with Yun Jian in the selection field. When they first entered the field, Su Mei was older and often took care of Yun Jian and Luo Berry. Su Mei invited Yun Jian to visit Luo Berry's house this week and Yun Jian did not refuse. Before they left, Yun Jian even called Mo Sen, the assistant that Ce had left for her, along. Luo Berry's family was rich. How rich were they? Based on their family's wealth, it was more than enough to buy hundreds of helicopters. Luo Berry's family was located in Donglin City in the northern province. Donglin City was a coastal city and the property prices here were very high. It was one of the first-tier cities in Country Z. Luo Berry's house was located halfway up a tall mountain. This entire mountain was her family's property. The owners of Luo Berry's house were Luo Berry's grandfather and grandmother. Her family was a more feudal family. Luo Berry's father and mother lived together with her uncles, aunts, and uncles. Mo Sen, who followed behind Yun Jian and Su Mei, was no different from a bodyguard. They had finally arrived at the entrance of Luo Berry's house halfway up the mountain. Luo Berry had been waiting there since early morning. When she saw Yun Jian and Su Mei, Luo Berry pounced on them. I'm so happy that you guys can come to our house to play. Luo Berry hugged Yun Jian and Su Mei. Luo Berry was 1.6 meters tall with a slim figure. She was already 18 years old, but she looked like she was only 14 or 15 years old. She looked very young. After hugging Yun Jian and Su Mei, Luo Berry glanced behind Yun Jian and Su Mei and saw Mo Sen, who was calm and silent, standing behind them. Why was he here too? Chapter 1724. She turned around and saw Mo-san standing behind Yunjian. His sharp eyes were looking straight ahead. He did not even look at her, as if they had never met before. Luo Berry's heart sank. She did not know why. She had nothing to do with him, but when she saw him looking at her with the gaze of a stranger, she felt disappointed. Little Strawberry. Little Strawberry. Little Strawberry. Why are you in a daze? Have you been mesmerized by Sister Unlucky's valiant demeanor? Su-mei called out the nickname she gave Luo Berry a few times and flipped her short hair, showing off in front of Luo Berry and Yunjian unabashedly. Little Strawberry was the nickname Su-mei gave Luo Berry. Although Su-mei was a woman, she had short and delicate hair, which made her look like a tomboy. After calling Luo Berry back to her senses, Su-mei walked over and put one hand on Luo Berry's shoulder. She put the other hand on Yunjian's shoulder and led them into the villa. Let's go. It's my first time visiting such a high-class place. Little Strawberry, you have to be a good guide. Otherwise, I'll get lost. Su-mei had a straightforward personality. She was like a heroine. Of course, it was because of this that Yunjian did not hate her. After a while, Luo Berry finally recovered from her earlier expression. Su-mei had a straightforward personality. She was like a man and did not have any meticulous thoughts. Therefore, she did not notice the way Luo Berry looked at Mo. Senator Yunjian was observant. Even the slightest movement could not fool her eyes. Therefore, she saw Luo Berry's feelings for Mo. Senator. However, Yunjian did not say a word. Luo Berry's villa occupied a large area. It was the size of 50 basketball courts. It was not an exaggeration. Just looking in from the main entrance, there were endless lawns and flower beds. There was no trace of the villa. In a normal villa forest, a villa was only that big. However, when one entered Luo Berry's house from the main entrance, there was no trace of the house. From the house to the gate, Luo Berry took a private car. One could imagine how big Luo Berry's house was. Su-mei was amazed by Luo Berry's family's wealth the whole time. It took more than 10 minutes to get from the gate to her house in Luo Berry's private car. After getting out of the car, Su-mei was even more shocked by the luxurious Rockberry's house. She kept screaming. Of course, it wasn't her fault. Su-mei's family background wasn't very good. It was the first time she had seen such a place, so it was no wonder that she was a little surprised. As soon as he got out of the car, he saw a group of young men and women standing at the main entrance of the villa. These young men and women were all dressed up in famous brands. At first glance, he could tell that they were the princesses and young masters of the upper class. Come in, come in. I'll make tea for you. Luo Berry took Yunjian and Su-mei's hands and walked into the house. However, before she could bring Yunjian, Su-mei, and Mo-san into the house, a boy who looked a little like Luo Mei among the group of boys and girls standing next to her stopped Luo Mei. Little Berry, who are you bringing with you? Why, are you ignoring your cousin now when you see him? Originally, when Luo Berry brought Yunjian, Su-mei, and Mo-san into the house, no one could see them. The group of boys and girls around them were having a lot of fun. But when this boy who looked a little like Luo Berry spoke, everyone looked over. If it was said that the people that Yunjian met in the past were mostly rich people in disguise, then at this moment, the group of boys and girls standing in front of Yunjian and the rest, which one of them didn't come from a rich family? As the saying goes, people from the same family would make friends with people from the same family. If a child from a rich family made friends with a child from a poor family, they would be laughed at. Su-mei wasn't dressed well. Because her family was poor, the clothes she bought were very ordinary. Of course, it was considered presentable among ordinary people. The clothes that Yunjian and Mo-san were wearing belonged to the upper class, but Yunjian and Mo-san didn't wear famous brands to show off and attract attention. But the group of boys and girls standing in the distance all determined a person's status based on their clothes. This was especially true for people like them, who had been pampered and spoiled since they were young. Yun Jian and the rest were not dressed badly, but in their eyes, they were like frogs at the bottom of a well. Immediately, a girl who was wearing famous brands from head to toe, even her underwear, walked to Luo Berry's cousin and turned her head to mock Yun Jian and the rest as if they were a joke. Chapter 1725. The cousin who just called Luo Mei was called Luo Xiling. He had good facial features and looked modest. The girl who spoke later was called Xiang Jie. She was a friend of Luo Mei's cousin. Her family was also very rich. If she could hang out with Luo Xiling's group of young masters and princesses, her family would not be too bad. At this moment, Luo Mei, who was called, paused. Yun Jian was right. When Luo Xiling called Luo Mei's body shrank obviously. There was a moment of fear. Let's go. Ignore them. Luo Mei hurriedly pulled Yun Jian and Su Mei into the house. Luo Mei was 18 years old. She was petite and cute. Because of her baby face, her skin was as smooth and delicate as a newborn baby's, so she looked only 14 or 15 years old. Rich ladies, such as Xiang Jie, were born ugly. Her appearance was very dark and her skin was terrible. However, she covered her terrible skin with branded cosmetics and slightly warmed it up. Luo Mei was the kind of person who did not need skincare products at all. Her facial features were delicate and beautiful since she was a child. Although her slender legs were not very long, they were in the golden ratio with her upper body. She was very beautiful. Xiang Jie was very envious. So when she saw Yun Jian, Su Mei and Mo Sen dressed very ordinary, she took this opportunity to suppress Luo Mei. However, one thing had to be said. Mo Sen was the most handsome man present, and Xiang Jie was really attracted to him. In spite of it, Mo Sen stood behind Yun Jian without uttering a word, not even glancing at anyone. His aloofness surprised everyone present. Just when Luo Mei was about to take Yun Jian and others into the villa, Luo Xiling interrupted Xiang Jie and stood in front of Yun Jian and the others. Xiang Jie, you can't say that. Everyone is equal, no matter who is rich or poor. After that, Luo Xiling glanced at Yun Jian and others with the demeanor of a gentleman. Then he bowed slightly and invited them very elegantly. My friend offended you just now, so I'd like to apologize to you. Also, we're planning to go to our own racetrack for a race. If you're free, why don't you come and have some fun? Then, Luo Xiling looked at Luo Mei. I'm not going. If you want to go, go by yourselves. They won't go either. Luo Berry's reaction was very strong. Luo Mei's reaction made Yun Jian's gaze sharpen. Little sister Little Berry, why don't we go together? We just saw old lady Luo in the house. If old lady Luo sees them. Immediately, a boy dressed in branded clothes and wearing a very expensive Swiss watch walked up from the side. The boy glanced at Yun Jian and the other two before speaking to Luo Mei. Luo Berry's expression changed when he heard that. Old Madame Luo was Lubi's grandmother. Madame Luo was an old woman with a very feudal mindset. She usually didn't like Luo Berry. In addition, Luo Berry's usual friends were not the young masters and princesses of the upper class designated by Madame Luo, so Madame Luo disliked Luo Berry even more. But Madame Luo was usually not at home. Why was she at home now? Luo Berry's expression darkened. She wasn't afraid that Madame Luo would blame her for making friends with people who weren't from the upper class. Instead, she was afraid that Madame Luo wouldn't be nice to Yun Jian and the other two. Okay. Luo Berry had to compromise. She had to go to the racetrack built by the Luo family first. Yun Jian didn't say anything since the beginning, but she could feel that Luo Berry's family wasn't an ordinary one. Their family was strict, and the atmosphere was probably not very good. Racing was one of the after-dinner activities of this group of rich second-generation heirs. And the Luo family had their own racetrack. The boy with the Swiss watch who persuaded Luo Berry to bring Yun Jian and the others to the racetrack was called Shi Chenxian. He looked ordinary, but he was born with a mouth that loved to show off. Boys from poor families had their own way of showing off, and boys from rich families also had their own way of showing off in front of girls. As the group of people walked to the racetrack, Shi Qinxian had already walked to Yun Jian's side and kept asking Yun Jian questions. If it weren't for Mo Sun who was standing around, Shi Qinxian would have stuck to Yun Jian at this moment. You're Yun Jian? What a beautiful name. Hey! Have you ever raced before? Shi Qinxian asked. How can a girl like her play racing? A boy next to Shi Qinxian interrupted and came over. You're right. Shi Qinxian patted his head. Yun Jian didn't say a word since just now. At this time, in order to show off, the group of boys began to flaunt in front of the girls. Hey, do you know the SS in the racing world? Isn't that the top figure in the racing world? I heard that the SS appeared in Maryland in Country M some time ago. Is this true? It must be true. One of my buddies saw it with their own eyes. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.